Welcome back, Red Spotters. This is the Red Spotlight Podcast, bringing you all the latest stories out of the world of movies. This week, Pixar employees are pissed off at Disney. Peter will give his thoughts on The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the finale, as well as the series overall. We also have a movie review for the Netflix/David Fincher film based on Herman Mankiewicz, the writer of Citizen Kane, called Mank. And we're also going to discuss what the fuck happened at the Academy Awards. Everything from the winners, the losers, and also the drama behind the scenes. All that and more on Red Spotlight number 319. So, before we get into what we saw this week, a couple of announcements. Of course, you can catch our podcast every single Sunday, sometimes on Thursdays, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Again, Castbox, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as Fantasy Fair Podcast. They just dropped a new episode every other Friday, every single Friday, Fantasy Fridays, whenever they happen. Alexis and Kyle gave their thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as the reopening of Disneyland, which is happening at this very moment. So,
is the trip back on?
Not that they've told me. So, I mean, knowing them, it probably is already a thought that has come across their minds.
Alexis wasn't clawing her way in, Walking Dead style. Like, I don't know.
I think she's exercising some self-restraint in this department.
Oh.
So.
How nice.
Yeah. And also, I've discussed this with David, and since we have been recapping all of the Marvel shows lately, as far as like our extended TV segments, right, on all of the different shows that we've talked about, we do have about a month or so until Loki, which is the next Marvel Disney Plus series that arrives. And so we've decided, even though I believe at this hour it has finished airing its first season on Amazon Prime, David and I are going to actually cover all 8 episodes of Invincible. We're going to split them into 2. We're going to have an episode talking about the first 4 episodes, and then an episode talking about the second 4 episodes, because it is causing quite the stir. So, Peter, you of course are invited to participate, although of course I understand that Tuesdays, which is our regular recording days, are not really good for you. So, the invitation stands. Whether or not you show up, it's up to you. But there is that. So, yeah, a couple of announcements that you are aware of. And let's get into what we saw this week. I'll start off with me. I don't really have much. I did finish The Nanny on Hbo Max. And it was every bit as hilarious and emotional as I recall.
Did you cry when she walked out of that house with the baby?
Oh, you know it, man. You know, she didn't walk out with the baby. She walked out with the that box that she had with her from...
the first time she was selling the makeup.
The bridal shop, yeah.
Every sitcom ends with them moving.
Yeah.
And walking out of the like set for one last time. Like every single one.
But it works every single time. Most times it does work. So yeah, no, it's I love that show, and I was I don't know, just wonderful to be able to reconnect with it. Streaming right now on HBO Max, and in the interim, I have moved over to Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm not watching the whole thing over again. I hadn't finished the recent seasons, so right now I'm in the middle of season 9, and then I still have season 10 to watch. And I think right now they're filming season 11, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Have you, by the way, have you caught up on any of the recent Curb seasons?
No.
Okay. Are you planning on watching them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am. Mm-hmm.
All right.
I got a lot of things to watch.
Yeah, and then also I crammed in some movies before the Oscars happened. I watched the documentary My Octopus Teacher, which apparently has become a joke, which, you know, that's all all good and well, but I actually...
I know you take it personal when the films you like become a joke.
but you have to understand, that happens, like, a lot. That happens a lot. Like, there's always some kind of movie that happens to, like, steal my heart, and then there's a whole bunch of people who are out with the pitchforks and knives and ready to burn it to the ground. And why? Why does this always happen? It always happens this way. So there's always like a backlash to things that are actually, I think, quite good. And so at some point, Peter, I would love for you to watch this so we can talk about it. If nothing else, for the beautiful imagery that are those images that are captured in this underwater world. It's kind of it's beautiful. And then I watched Minari, with Lee Isaac Chung directed the film with Steven Yeun, among others, and I thought it was pretty great. I'm sure you'll love it. So when you watch that, we'll also discuss the film at further length. And I also watched Mank, all that in one night. So I was just trying to get them out of the way with as soon as possible, because Mank was the last movie I needed to watch to make sure that I had seen all the Best Picture nominees. Mm-hmm. And I think it's actually one of the first years where I've actually seen all the nominees. And that's like a hard thing to do. So
I think all the nominees this year were worth watching.
Isn't that strange how we can finally say that in a year where there were hardly any movies that came out?
Yeah. Because in past years, there's movies like, oh my God, I love these movies. But it's like, shit gets nominated. And it's like, I don't care if I ever see this, you know?
Green Book, Bohemian Rhapsody, Joker, you know.
Mm. I did see Joker, though.
Yeah.
The memes pushed me to do it.
That's all you care about the film. It's just memes.
Yeah, if they didn't have that, I don't know. I wouldn't care about the film. But
and it made $1 billion and it won an Academy Award. 2 Academy Awards, actually. Yeah. Peter's holding a Joker card right now for reasons that I think should be pretty obvious. And Mank, obviously, we'll be discussing at further length toward the end of the show today. So that is what I have seen this week. Peter, what is it with you? What have you watched?
Not much. I was actually going to watch, the animated movie that came out on Netflix, The Hendersons versus the Machines, or something like that.
The Netflix film?
Yeah. But the second I pressed play, I fell asleep. Took a very nice mid-afternoon nap.
Kind of like me in Phantom Thread. A great film, but it made me fall asleep.
But I didn't even get past the opening credits. It was just literally play, nap. I don't know. I didn't plan it, but that's literally what happened. So I can't talk about that yet. Maybe I'll watch it tomorrow or even later tonight.
We can do a review on it. I hear great things from it.
Yeah, I hear great things, and then I also hear some mixed things. So I'm really interested. I saw Mortal Kombat. Streaming now on Hbo Max, or you can catch it in theaters. Yes, if you are vaccinated. I do not recommend if you are not vaccinated. Oh, and did you see, this is kind of non sequitur, but did you see I think it was the CDC said, if you're vaccinated, you can basically walk around without a mask. Mm-hmm. Just not in large crowds. Right. What constitutes a large crowd, I don't know. But that is that's the $1 million question, right? What constitutes a large crowd? I mean, in my neighborhood right now, they're basically nothing's happening. There's a whole bunch of people gathering around for a bunch of games. So, and there's a few hundred people here. So I don't know if that qualifies. Disneyland's open right now. Of course, masks are required there. Mm-hmm. I think that's an encouraging sign, right? Masks. I mean, I don't like the idea being spread around masks. Let's start lifting all restrictions and mandates. That's what gets me scared, but it's also encouraging that they're not as necessary as they used to be, right? If you are fully vaccinated, that's the stipulation, right? You've got your Moderna, Pfizer, both doses, or your one dose of Johnson & Johnson, which, by the way, has resumed now. They've cleared it, so it's fine. If you have all of that, then you're good to go, basically. You don't need the mask. But one quick thing.
I know.
One quick thing. This doesn't mean, the CDC saying this does not mean that mask mandates have been lifted all over the country. No, it does not mean that. Okay? Be careful about misinterpreting what something means. The mask mandates, especially in places like private property, like Disneyland right now, or in places that have liberal governments like California, you have to wear a mask. And I believe President Biden's executive order remains where on government property, mask mandates are still a thing. So that's not going away anytime soon. It just means that if you're fully vaccinated, you're good to go, which we kind of already knew that was the case, but we're now just updating the information.
But this is what pisses me off about stupid people, right? Because it's like, personally, I don't know. Because if stupid people didn't exist, I could just trust myself to go out without a mask.
Yeah.
And I would trust that other people would attempt to get vaccinated themselves. And if they have not yet gotten vaccinated, they would continue to wear a mask, right? And like if I see people that aren't maskless, I could just assume people that aren't wearing masks, I can just assume that they've already gotten vaccinated, and people that are wearing masks assume like, well, they haven't got vaccinated yet, but eventually they will, whatever, right? But because we live around a lot of stupid people, and I mean the whole country, like I don't mean anything specifically here, like I can't trust that, right? No. So if I go somewhere and there's a lot of people wearing a lot of masks, maybe they are vaccinated, right? And they're well within the CDC guidelines. But I'm still in a mode where it's like if I see people without a mask, I just think anti-masker.
Basically.
And I don't want to make other people uncomfortable, and I don't want to send that vibe to other people. And I honestly don't think wearing a mask is that big a deal, so I still wear my mask pretty much everywhere. Mm-hmm. Plus, again, you are required in most areas to still do it anyways. But it is this thing of like, man, I just wish people weren't such fucking morons, because it'd be so simple right now. Be like, oh yeah, like we're all vaccinated, we're okay, If we gotta go to a store, we'll wear it, but whatever. Like mostly I can walk down the street and not wear it. But I don't know. I don't know what to do, because the people that are mostly going to take advantage of that are the same people that never wanted to wear a mask. They never wanted to get vaccinated. They're just ignorant children that want to cry because they're slightly inconvenienced. And they were dared to, again, be inconvenienced in the hopes that would save lives, and that pissed them off. So it's just like, moving forward, it is like, it's like, okay, well, how do you move forward in this predicament when a good portion, I don't know about a good portion, but there is a portion of your citizens that are really fucking stupid and will fight you any step of the way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how it'll look going forward. It's the same thing with vaccinations, mm-hmm. right? Because now people that genuinely wanted vaccinations, that's kind of over now. And now you have to convince people to get vaccinated. And it's just like, fuck, man, why can't you just get vaccinated? I did it, guys. It's not that bad. Yeah. I swear to you.
I understand that frustration. I understand that kind of anxiety. I guess what I would encourage most like-minded people to do is to do what makes you feel comfortable. If you're uncomfortable being out in public with, maskless, then put the mask on. If you feel comfortable with the fact that you're fully vaccinated and you're going to be fine, maybe you can be a little bit more lax about that. For me, I have my mask off when I'm around people who are fully vaccinated. And at this point, most of the family that I see on a regular basis, they're fully vaccinated. At this point, all of my friends that I'm around on a semi-regular basis, they're fully vaccinated. In that case, I'm a lot more comfortable just letting the mask thing go, right? If I'm out in public, in any scenario, if I'm walking around town at the mall or something, obviously there are restrictions in the stores, in the businesses themselves. But I've also seen people who take them off immediately after they're out of the store, or they're still in the parking lot and they don't have them on. I'm not that cavalier. If I'm out in public, I still have it on just because I think not just for out of protection and concern for myself, but out of courtesy for everybody else around me, you know? So I know I don't need it really because I have the vaccine and I have the protections, but I also know this. The vaccine that I have is 95% effective against infection of COVID-19. That with the mask is 100%, in my view, prevention from COVID-19, of getting infected. So why not just have the mask to ensure that you don't get? Because that's just, it makes me feel a lot easier to know that I'm not going to, the chances of me getting it are astronomically low. So that's kind of where I fall in the line. But it is, even though all of the concerns that come of it, still encouraging, of course, that we are moving in. You think we are moving in the right direction? I just saw a report this day that because of the vaccinations, deaths due to COVID-19 in the U.S. are down.
I guess that's why I'm frustrated, right? Like because a lot of people that are, I don't know, anti-vax are fucking crazy.
They're psychotic. I'm sorry. They're psychotic. There's no logic behind any of what they say. It is ridiculous to be against masks and to be against vaccines. There is no middle ground for you. Sorry, Tyler Perry. I'm not going to meet you in the middle for that one.
Oh, is he trying to?
No, he's not.
Is he?
He's not.
Okay.
People are just dunking on him.
Don't throw that shade at him. Don't do that to Tyler Perry. I believe he's not that dumb in any way.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people are like, oh, they want you to wear a mask. They want to impose restrictions on you. It's about freedom and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like me, who was 100% all for the restrictions and the masks and stuff like that. The reason I'm for that is because I don't want to go through this forever. I want to be comfortable going outside and not wearing a mask and seeing other people not wearing masks and not feeling like uncomfortable about it. Like I don't
You
like
could
that.
if we lived in New Zealand, where everybody seems to have
right.
like
that would be fine, right?
But we live in America, and I mean, I think it was during the past week where I saw this email being spread around through conservative circles of, I'm not going to get vaxxed to own the libs or to make the libs mad. Like that's the mentality that half the country has. And because that, I understand, oh, well, I'm actually kind of thankful things are as good as they are right now, considering
you're looking on the bright side.
Yeah, considering how stupid, crazy, and complete loons this country
that's
has.
why I call it a death cult, right? Because they're like, they will literally kill everyone if it triggers the libs. Anyway, we're supposed to be talking about what I watched.
Yeah. Anyway, but I mean, it is topical. Obviously, people are concerned about this, and I don't know. I'm of the mind where I have my protections now. I should be good to go. I'm done letting those assholes dictate what I can and can't do with my life. Okay? That's it.
Your body, your choice?
Basically, I'm going to go see Black Widow in theaters in July, come hell or high water.
I think you're just determined to go back to the movie theater.
I am. I don't care. I'm done waiting. I'm fucking done waiting. Fuck everybody. I'm done.
Yeah, that'll be nice. But so, I saw
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. I saw it at home, and on Hbo Max. Speaking of falling asleep, I also took a short nap in the middle of that film. I don't know what's happening to me.
Are you just tired these days?
I'm very tired these days, I guess. Yeah, the film's bad. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's bad. I can understand how if you have an affinity for these characters and for the game, that there's little things here and there that really go like, oh, that's cool, that's neat. I really like enjoy seeing that. I like how because there's shots towards the ends where they're all together and it's like, yeah, this really looks like the video game come to life with all the characters. And for the most part, I like a lot of the actors they chose for their characters. It's just a badly made film. Like, it's a bad script. It's poorly directed. It's poorly edited. Like, it's really, really poorly edited.
I heard the dialogue is atrocious.
See, the dialogue is atrocious, but I think that's okay. Because some of my favorite lines in the films are atrocious lines, right? Like, you can have bad lines. I think this film needed to take an Aquaman approach.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because I think James Wan at one point was attached to direct it.
Right. Oh,
and I think
really? Huh.
He would have made an amazing
and for those
Mortal Kombat film.
For those who are not aware, can you explain for the audience what you mean when you say the Aquaman approach?
Well, the Aquaman approach is basically, you know what you're making is silly, over-the-top garbage, and you lovingly embrace that shit. Wholeheartedly. And that's what Aquaman did. Like, bad dialogue, cheesy story, cheesy one-liners, everything. But it approaches it with such, like, a knowing wink and love that it's just a shit ton of fun, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this film needed to. It's Mortal Kombat. It's not deep. And it shouldn't be approached with any level of seriousness. It should just be a cast of fun, goofy, cheesy characters that beat the shit out of each other for a couple of hours, and the action is awesome and the music is awesome, and like that's it, right? Like, you know what? I keep noticing this in poorly made video game movies. I feel like they take it too seriously. Like, a lot of Mortal Kombat is played very serious and very little humor. There's only one character that has humor to him, and it's the one character everyone walked away going, I really like that character, which is Kano. Because he's the only one that actually understood. Like, it's like, yeah, this is the kind of characters everyone should be like Kano. Not as, like, cheeky and, like, not be exactly that character, but be played up that big and goofy and fun. But it takes itself too seriously. It's poorly edited. It's really weird because the movie starts, and actually the beginning's pretty good, like the opening. Mm-hmm. But it has a lot of, like, mystical stuff, and there's different realms, what they call it. One of the realms is Outworld. And it's crazy, right? Because the movie starts and it's like, oh, this mystical stuff from a long time ago. But it's on Earth. It's like ancient Japan, I think it takes place. And then it cuts forward to modern day. But then from modern day, it just, like, cuts and it says Outworld. And you're just in this, like, now you're in, like, a Power Rangers movie, but Power Rangers movie taken seriously, right? And there's no establishing shot. There's no build up. Like, what's Outworld? What is it's like nothing is built up. It's just like, we're in Outworld now. And now are these characters you've never seen before and now talking about, we must do the competition. And it's like, whoa, like, no build up whatsoever. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're describing a Zack Snyder DC movie. Like, for one, it takes itself way too seriously, and two, it expects you to understand the history of the material it's basing off of.
Yes, they both have those similar issues, but the action isn't as good as the Zack Snyder film either. That's where, like, a lot of the editing problems come in too.
I would have assumed, based on how people were raving about it, that the hand-to-hand combat was a highlight of the film.
Some of it is cool because they do have very talented people, but the way it's shot and the way it's edited,
it's not.
And the way it's cut is so weird, it's by this point there has been so many just on YouTube videos of going like, do not make action like this, make it like this, and don't do the like quick cuts with the camera shaking because your actors can't actually fight, and you think of you shaking enough and quick cut it enough that you might trick the audience to go like, well, something's happening. You know, they do some of that here, and it's like, don't do that. You do have good fighters here. Like, stop. Like, just place the camera and let us see the fighting. That's why when I said I liked a lot of Shang-Chi, the trailer, because when there was fighting, it wasn't these like, oh, quick cut, boom, boom, boom. It was literally just the camera, like, and maybe the camera would move around, but it's just showing him fight, you know. It's not these nauseating cuts. It wasn't all bad. It was definitely had some entertainment value, but it's like, I don't it shouldn't be. At this point, I'm mad because it should not be this hard.
It shouldn't. That's why I kind of avoid these movies, honestly. And it look, to me, when I saw the trailer for Mortal Kombat, like, or whatever,
it was
like,
a good trailer.
It was a good trailer to an extent, but like so were most of the other video game. Like it all just looks the same. It all just looks so boring and blah, and you can tell that it was going to take itself way too seriously just by looking at it. Like, and I feel like this has been the same case for 10 years now. Honestly, Peter, can, like, off the top of your mind, what other films in this genre, I think you're going to say all of them, suffer from the same problems? Like what? Like there's, I think of Warcraft. I didn't see it, but I hear it has some of the same problems.
It takes itself too seriously. It devotes itself too hard to the lore, and so it just feels like you need to get someone to come in and make these films that has like zero attachment.
There's
to
Assassin's
the video games.
Creed with Michael Fassbender, right?
Same thing. They took it too fucking serious. Like fuck. And it's just not that well directed, and the action's not as good. And what makes me mad is it shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah.
To make these movies. Mortal Kombat is like the easiest video game movie you could make. The structure's there. It's a Mortal Kombat. They have a tournament to determine the survival of the Earth realm. Basically, it's a tournament to fight for the safety of Earth, right? And you have a good guy team and a bad guy team. And the whole movie is just the tournament, right? And you can have a main character who's kind of like your savior character or whatever, who ultimately wins the tournament. But it's like a tournament, right? Like, we've had fighting movies before. It's like the same shit. Except with like these cool video game characters that are all different, unique, and you have fun action. Like, this should be so easy. Yeah. Do you know there's not even a Mortal Kombat tournament in the Mortal Kombat movie?
Why?
Why is correct. It's ridiculous. They don't even have the tournament. And I think in their mind, it's like, oh no, we're going to build up to the tournament. And by the third film, we're going to... And it's like, stop. Just make a good movie. Make a good movie first, and then think about the future. But it's the bad guys literally... The whole movie is the bad guys going and trying to kill the good guys before the tournament to like cheat. So that like they kill the good guys before they can even make it to the tournament. Which... inadvertently turns into like its own tournament.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, wait, like your whole thing is killing the good guys, but you're like killing them one-on-one. Isn't this literally what would have happened at the tournament anyways? Like, why are you doing this?
In my mind, like, this genre should have already, I think, took off like 10 years ago.
It should have broken through.
And the last 10 years, it's just been a constant series of failures after the other. And as you say, this should not be that difficult to actually do. But every studio just keeps on making the exact same decisions on these films, and they end up being received almost in the exact same way. In 10 years, not a single one of these films has grossed or has been anywhere near successful as a comic book movie. And at this point, it should have. And you think of the fact that we have, I think, any animated movie of any studio genre, and to be fair, they do make, bank at the box office, but any animated movie from any studio can, I think, maybe even double the box office of any of these video game films. And at this point, they should be at the stature of a comic book film, and they're not. And it's just because they aren't good. On the other hand, there has been a bit of a subgenre forming that has found a little bit more success in the films of Detective Pikachu and then also Sonic the Hedgehog, where they are based off video games, but I guess they're more of a family genre than they are, I guess, like a video game adult mature audience film.
You know why they're I never saw Sonic, but I saw Pikachu, and it was cute. Like, it wasn't bad. I would never call that... It wasn't a bad film. No. It was cute. Yeah. It was like, I had a good time watching it. But that film didn't take itself seriously, right? It didn't go like, oh my God, like, you need to know the entire lore, and this is super serious with this, and and we're going to build up to the tournament. Like, nothing interesting is ever going to actually happen here in this film because we're thinking 6 movies in the future. They're like no, like it's a world with Pokemon, and Pikachu is voiced by Ryan Reynolds, and it's weird and it's goofy, but it's
a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
It was fun, right? And they did have Pokemon battles in there, but me, for someone who knows of Pokemon but was never into Pokemon, right? Like I know Pikachu, I know Squirtle.
Do you know Psyduck?
It's the duck, right?
Okay, it's one of the... Yeah, sure, yeah.
Reptar? What's
Reptar is Rugrats.
The Red Dragon? What's that one called?
Charizard?
Charizard, yeah. I know, though. Ash. He's the kid who wants to be the best, but apparently fucking sucks because 20 years later he hasn't accomplished anything. I don't know.
Think of it like The Simpsons and Family Guy. There's no such thing as time. They're the same thing for like all of time. The same age. Yeah,
for 20 years. That's most cartoons. So yeah, like, it was fun. It was good. I really think the key is just not taking it so fucking seriously. Don't stop thinking about like, oh, I gotta think about the lore and tying it into the video game, like, story and all of this and all of that. Just take the key things from the video games that work and turn it into a film. And I think I'm mad now because it should not be this hard. It should be fairly easy at this point. There are so many video games you can choose from. Video games are more popular than they ever have been. And I can think of like 5 off the top of my head where easy film. Like that, just simple story.
Yeah,
make a shit ton of money, but whatever.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wonder how that Super Mario film will be received. Again,
don't remind.
Again, I feel like that's a subgenre because it is based off a video game. It will be a family film, and it will be an animated film, and it will be Illumination, and it'll probably be fine, but it will be very popular. Because Illumination films,
all the money, and I will fucking hate it.
For those who need a reminder, we are not fans of the Illumination Animation Studio.
No.
Most people are, but we're not.
Lazy motherfuckers. No.
And yet you give Pixar so much crap for winning every year.
I know. But Despicable Me's never won. The Minions had never won it. Oh, God, I would love it, though. Can you imagine? Minions. I'm getting way off track. But I remember watching a Minions sequel trailer a long-ass time ago, and then it just occurred to me, it never came out. Wait, what happened to that movie? Because I heard literally nothing about it, but there was a Minions sequel. it's like something of Gru. I don't know. Fuck them.
Isn't that Despicable Me 4? Is that a thing yet?
There was a Minions 2 trailer, and I remember
The Origin of Gru?
Something like that. Yeah.
It didn't come out?
Did it? I don't see. This is what I'm saying.
I don't care about that movie, so I would never go out of my way to. But I also remember watching that trailer, and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah, but there's been nothing about it, right?
Yeah.
You haven't even heard it's moving its release date, or it's really nothing. And the other day, I got reminded of it, and I'm like, wait, did I dream about that trailer?
No, I know
does the
what you're
movie
talking
not even
about.
exist?
It does.
And I was like, am I losing my mind? And I had to quickly go on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, it does exist. But for a second, I was like, oh shit, did I just make up an entire Minions sequel in my head?
Well, Universal's an interesting case because, unlike Disney and Warner Brothers, who have been prioritizing using their streamers, HBO Max and Disney Plus, to maybe dump films on there to promote those services, Universal is clearly not doing that with Peacock. They're just not doing it. They have their own side deal with AMC in particular, and I think some other chain, where after 17 days in the theaters, the films can start going on PVOD for some extra change, and they've stuck to that. And I'm going to assume that's what's going to happen to this Minions film whenever they decide to do that.
I imagine that gets them more money.
I have to think, yeah.
Because they're not selling Peacock on their films. They're selling Peacock on The Office.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty damn funny. So I saw Mortal Kombat. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not a good film, and I'm just kind of pissed off at this point. It's... The fact that we haven't even had one breakout hit is just ridiculous, as far as video game movies are concerned. And then I saw the episode 8 finale of Invincible, because it just came out.
No spoilers.
I was gonna say, I guess I just won't get into it that much.
I'm gonna see it now, so
yeah, but it is a hell of a season finale. It is something, I will tell you that. After I started watching the show, I got
the comics
on here, all 3 omnibuses. Do you know what omnibus is?
I don't know what that word means in this context.
It's comic speak for... Okay. So it's you have the trade releases, which is the numbers, Invincible 1, Invincible 2, Invincible 3, Invincible 4. And then they sell them in volumes.
Okay.
Which collects Invincible 1 through 5. Volume 2, 6 through 11, stuff like that. And then sometimes you have books, which is 10, groups of the 10, numbers 1 through 10, slightly bigger. And then the largest is the omnibus, which collects a whole bunch of the numbers.
So you have 3 omnibuses, and I am going to assume that's the entirety of the collection?
The entirety. Okay. So it ran for 143 individual issues. So 143 divided by 3. That's how many, in each omnibus. And that's literally 15 years of comics, because it took 15 years to do the whole series. And it is a series that has a beginning, middle, and end. And I downloaded them and I read them all in about a week. I read 15 years of comics in about a week.
Yeah.
And
yet I know Kyle used to call me an addict when I first got into Doctor Who, when he told me to watch it. I watched 10 years worth of episodes in 2 weeks.
That is crazy.
How is it crazy?
Because each episode is an hour.
It's 42 minutes. It's not an hour. Or maybe it's...
Oh, I'm sorry. 42 minutes. Not
sure,
an hour.
if you want to call it an hour, but it's there's 13 episodes a season. That's not that bunch.
13 times 10?
Well, not 10 seasons. It's at that point, it was 8 seasons.
13 times 8.
That ain't that lot.
That's a lot. No, I'll stand by his correct assumption that you're crazy. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, I rolled through it and I fucking loved it. It's really good, and I know you're not into reading comics, but if anyone out there is interested,
David also is reading them.
Yes, so like someone like David. That's why whenever it's like comics, I specifically talk to David because I know David.
He appreciates all that stuff, and rest assured, he will be bringing that knowledge to our shows when we discuss Invincible. Can't wait. I hear a lot of great things. Like, I've heard too many great things from it to ignore it, and honestly, it looks great. Just as an outside perspective, yeah, just from that perspective. And this is on Amazon Prime, and to use this to kind of get into our first like small news story, and that is the fact that Invincible has been renewed for seasons 2 and 3. Here's my question to you. Mm-hmm. This is a series because it just had 8 episodes for its first season. It's been renewed for 2 more seasons. We're talking about here 15 years worth of material from the source material. Mm-hmm. Do you see this show going on for 15 years? Like, how long do you see this series going for?
I'm glad you brought that up, because it kind of goes back to what I wanted to say right now, which is, having read all of Invincible, if you out there, if you're someone that likes reading comics or you're interested in reading it, but you don't want to spoil the show, I would actually recommend reading the comics first, because as good as the comics are, I actually think the show improves on the story.
That is some high praise. You never hear that happen. You never hear anyone say that, where an adaptation of the source material, especially when you're talking about from like the medium of like pages, whether it be comics or whether it be even like novels or books of that sort, you rarely ever hear somebody say that the adaptation of that into something on the screen is superior.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, because I've watched a few reviews of the show. A lot of people are saying that as well.
Wow.
Who, like, I read the comic, and some people, that read it as it was coming out and stuff like that. But as far as how can they go for 15 years? Not 15 years, because what's interesting is it is very much the same story as the comics, but there is key changes. There are some things in the first season that aren't revealed until a little bit later on. They've plucked a few stories from later on in the show and like moved them to the first season. They've shuffled some things, just some things, not everything. They've changed the character, not like changed the characters, but like beefed up some characters, right? Because you gotta realize this is written over 15 years. Mm-hmm. So it's like they start it and they don't fully know where they're going with it specifically. So some characters that eventually become important, but don't become important until much later on in the comic, they plant those seeds in the first season. So it really is sort of like, and I don't want to, this feels kind of like talking down to the comic, but I'm not, because the comic's really good. It's really, really good. But it feels like the comic is like a really good rough first draft, and the show is like tightening it.
Okay.
And expanding on things here and there. Every change I feel the show has made has been positive. It's been really good, and it goes like, yeah, that's really good. I like how they changed that. I like how they did that. But I can see them going for like 5 or 6 seasons.
Okay.
Maybe even more.
That's a healthy run. For an animated series, that's a very healthy run.
For sure. There's a lot of story. Like, I think there's 143 issues, and the first season covers like the first 12.
Wow.
But it's not the first 12, because it actually does take stories from beyond the first 12.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's not like 1-to-1 the first 12. It's maybe like the 20 or maybe even 30, because it takes from other stories, condenses them a little bit, changes them a little bit. So I can definitely see them doing 5 or 6 seasons and maybe even more. But also Robert Kirkman, he did an interview with the always wonderful Ms. Grace Randolph. And he talked about how she said the same thing. She's like, I really like the changes you did. And he said, going forward, there will be some more changes, and also original stories. He says, that's what I'm really excited about. There will be original stuff that wasn't in the comic, like stuff that I kind of wanted to do but never got around to doing and stuff like that. So there'll be some stuff like that. And characters, again, that weren't as big in the comics are going to be a little bit bigger here. So yeah, no, it was a hell of a finale. I think it's really good. I think it's really good. And it's insane, the voice cast. Like, if you look at the voice cast.
Well, now you have, I think, leading, you have J.K. Simmons, of course, Academy Award winner J.K. Simmons, and Academy Award nominee Steven Yeun.
Yes. And we got Sandra Oh.
That's right. Yeah. Emmy Award winner Sandra Oh. Big names. Mm-hmm.
Mark Hamill. He's in there.
You know, a couple of things that are going through my mind. Good for Kirkman. He seems to have found his next cash cow after the Walking Dead franchise, which is still going in its own right. And that's making a lot of money for him. But with this, this could be something like the next Rick and Morty, where it's going to be on for a while. I think Rick and Morty got like a massive renewal a few years ago, right? It's going to be on through at least season 7, right? Last I checked. I think
it's more like the next Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, I meant in terms of the popularity. I don't think it's like
that's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it's gonna hit with those kinds of people. It's gonna hit in that way for this kind of like animated show.
Okay.
Because it's Rick and Morty.
It's a very niche audience, perhaps, or an adult. No, it's not niche. Maybe it's a more...
it's like comedy.
It's an adult-oriented comedy, and perhaps with Invincible, while there are adult-ish nature to it...
Very adult.
It has the capacity to be a 4-quadrant runaway hit, where it can appeal to anybody, really.
Well, I think it's hitting this large, overarching story, right?
Gotcha.
With this large cast of characters... that are it's vastly more adult in its content than Avatar: The Last Airbender, but in the kind of storytelling that it's doing.
So, like, for example,
I think that's where
with Invincible, it's serialized, and then with Rick and Morty, it's much more episodic.
Yeah, like I think it's fair to say like the Rick and Morty is like the next Family Guy or the next Simpsons.
Yeah, something
more along those lines. And this is, more... See, I almost want to compare it to something more adult, but I don't think there's
BoJack?
Anything to compare it to. No, it's not like BoJack. I'm trying to think of like something
I do want to
similar.
discuss BoJack with you one time.
Are you going to have you seen it?
It's on the list. So that's why I asked if you've seen Curb seasons 9 and 10, because it'd be nice to discuss those seasons. And I need to catch up on Rick and Morty season 4, and then also BoJack Horseman seasons 5 and 6. They're on the list, so I got to get to them.
Don't watch BoJack until you're in a good mood. I have finished.
I will plan some feel-good content to watch immediately after BoJack. Don't worry, I will go into it more than prepared.
Maybe around Christmas time. Actually, no. They say suicides go up at Christmas time. Oh my god, that's apparently a depressing time for a lot of people. Maybe not Christmas.
It can be, yeah. Also, one thing I want to say, I'm very happy for this news for like all of the people who are fans of the show, because this show kind of had to fight for
its place to be even attention. It came out at the exact same time as all of these other big shows, like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Snyder Cut came out, Godzilla versus. There's so much attention on all these other different things, and I think that it is an important thing to celebrate this because it seemed to have clawed its way into some kind of status simply because of word of mouth, and that is amazing.
You know what? This is where I agree with you. I think it is like Rick and Morty. I remember the first season of Rick and Morty, and like I remember watching that, and it was still like kind of an unknown show, and watching and going like, oh, this is funny. This is like this is great, and da 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 da. And then even in season 2, it really wasn't that big, but in between season 2
and 3
and season 3, that show fucking exploded.
I mean, that's right? When you told us to watch it, and we talked about it on the show at that point before season 3 aired.
Yeah, we were discussing season 2, but in between season 2 and 3, the show, boom. Yeah, the merchandise was everywhere. It was everywhere. Hot Topic. It was all over the internet. Like it exploded.
It's the new It Girl.
Yeah, it became the new It Girl overnight, and I have a sneaking suspicion that you're gonna see something like that. With Invincible. Yeah. Because now that the first season is out, people can discover it and then watch it all the way through and go like, oh shit. Like
also a 2-season renewal.
Yeah.
Not just one season, but 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. So I'm really hoping that like by the time season 2 comes around, that will have happened, right? Like it's word of mouth builds and then all of a sudden it's everywhere. And then people are like, fuck yeah, season 2. But yeah, no, that's what I saw. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, good for them. Good for them. Always glad to see an underdog that deserves it to win for a change. And since we're discussing Mortal Kombat, one thing I want to mention here, it hit theaters, right? As well as with HBO Max, where you can stream it. But apparently, Mortal Kombat hit $50 million in its first weekend at the domestic box office.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Right off the heels of Godzilla vs. Kong in the pandemic era. And I feel like that's encouraging. That's real encouraging for, I guess you're seeing an indication here that there is an appetite now to return to the cinema, right?
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good, 50...
Yeah.
15 minutes? Because I don't think it was like that expensive of a film.
No.
Like, the budget was probably close to 50 million. Maybe 70 or 90 or something around there. Yeah. I don't think it was an expensive film. So, no, that's good. That shows a good appetite for people to wanting to go back.
Similarly, I also am aware that the Alamo Drafthouse has decided to open 15 of its locations pretty soon. So another sign of things returning to what we're going to call a new normal, right? It's not going to go back to the way it was. Obviously, people are still reeling from the demise of ArcLight. The theatrical window has been forever altered. We have now the streaming services who are competing with the film, so it's a brand new terrain, but I'm just glad to have some semblance of the option, right, to go back to movies, and that there are people who are interested in going back to the movies, even while having the option to see these films at home. I like that. I'm encouraged by it. I mean, I want to make sure that that's theater going survives in some way, somehow. Speaking of Godzilla vs. Kong, the director of that film, Adam Wingard, is currently in talks to direct Legendary's next MonsterVerse film. And it seems as if the restore or renew or whatever the MonsterVerse campaign has succeeded. And WB is moving forward with another film. Peter, what do you think?
I'm obviously ecstatic that they're moving forward with another film, but Son of Kong, I don't know if I would go forward with that one. I don't know if that gets people excited, right? Like it's Kong, but miniature. I don't know if
it feels like a step down from Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. They need to take my notes and just go balls to the wall.
Let's go to space.
Go to fucking space.
Fast and Furious is going to space. Why not Godzilla versus Kong?
Yes. I want to see Godzilla on the fucking moon, okay? I don't think that's too much to ask.
No. It's not. And you'd also think it wouldn't be too much to ask for Marvel to actually film on practical locations, right? But evidently, it has been. And I thought it was quite humorous this week because Kevin Feige gave an interview in which he said that Chloe Zhao was, quote, really fighting for practical locations, unquote, for the Eternals film that she made. And I have been bitching and moaning. I think most of us, but I've been the loudest voice saying for Marvel, look, I think the fact that Infinity War and Endgame were practically made in front of blue screens, and yet those, in my view, are some of the best visual effects I've ever seen because that looks real. But with a lot of the smaller films where it was evident that the budgets for those films in terms of the effects were sacrificed to donate to the Avengers films, you could see that that's a pretty cheap green screen. You saw it in Black Panther, you saw it in Guardians 2, you saw it in Ant-Man, that kept happening. And you also see a lot of behind-the-scenes features, when they do release behind-the-scenes features, that most of their filming locations they're in Georgia, Atlanta, and there's a bunch of blue walls, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought George Lucas really kind of dinged the whole idea of making your whole film in front of a blue screen because you lost that sense of practicality. You lost that sense of authenticity. I know that in recent conversations, what was it called? The Volume, technology that the Mandalorian has employed is kind of a game changer in this department, right? And I believe Thor 4 is using that technology. Well, Taika Waititi is utilizing that to film. We talked
about this. When I saw that, I'm like, this shit's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, and it's becoming to be everywhere at this point. But more to the point with Marvel, and you saw it with the Star Wars films, in particular with Last Jedi. Practical sets are beautiful, and you don't need it all to be CG. And I'm just glad that somebody finally got through to them, hey, we don't need to spend this money on visual effects. We can build it. We can make it. And I know that people were dunking on Feige and to the realization oh my God, can you believe she was able to do this with a physical set? And granted, I think that dunking is warranted. I'm just happy and I'm hopeful that this means maybe we can start to have a little bit more practicality in these movies. Peter, your thoughts on this?
I really think it comes back more to, as always, money, right? Because it's such a machine now making films where it's like we have a soundstage, we have these CG artists that we employ, well, basically like slave labor. we pay them, we can pay them next to nothing, and they will throw away their lives trying to finish our movie on time. And it's such an easy setup for them, right? Because it's really easy to do reshoots. It's easy to come in and just change the script. When you have locations and when you have practical effects, you have to plan for everything in a detailed way ahead of time, right? And that's a big thing with practical effects. And this is from the Thing Remake. The Thing Remake was originally going to be all practical effects. Like, they built everything. That isn't how it ended up. But what happened is one of the producers or the studio went and to the set and saw like one of the animatronics or one of the like puppets on the guy that like just would open up and it would eat someone. And they're like, oh no, this looks terrible. And I think they were trying to explain like, no, it looks terrible because you're not supposed to see it from that angle. You know, it is designed to be shot from this specific angle, you know, where it opens up and you see it from there. But I guess the studio wasn't buying it, and all of the practical effects were CG'd over for that film. So this is the issues you run up against, because the CG just changed it to where, you know, it's like move, 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 and you can treat films like a factory setting. It's so much easier to go in and like, I don't like that script, just have them stand in front of a CG thing, say the lines differently. You know, the movie stars, we can't work out the schedules for all the movie stars, so we have all of them so we get them whenever they're free, have them say their lines in front of this green screen, and then we'll put them all together in a scene during the film. You know, the Avengers did that a good point. And it's like, we have to start shooting already, but the script isn't fully done. That's fine. We're doing CG. We don't have to have everything planned ahead. So I really think that's what the biggest issue is, right? Mm-hmm. And the issue isn't convincing the studio that it looks nicer. I think it's just convincing them that it's worth the time, worth the money, and that it's going to work at the end of the day. Which I don't like. I think it sucks. But
yeah, I this discussion reminds me of episode of this YouTube series I watch, All My Movies with Dan Murrell, on his YouTube channel, and basically where he talks about the movies that he loves. And one was on E.T., the extraterrestrial, the Steven Spielberg film, and he goes over the history of the film and everything about it, and it got to a point where he shared a piece of information I wasn't even aware of, and that is in the early 2000s they re-released the film with a CGI E.T.
Really?
Yeah. And
is the footage out there?
It's out there. He used some of the footage in his video. I had no idea of it, and apparently it was received so badly that Spielberg went on the record saying he regretted making that decision.
Was that when him and George was in his ear like, believe me, Steven, it's gonna work. Look at Jar Jar.
Oh my god, it was early 2000s. Photorealistic. Yeah. I didn't know that happened. Apparently you didn't know either.
No, I've never seen footage. I'm so curious. I want to see some now.
I think it's kind of like what George did with the holiday special. Like, he tracked down every copy and smashed it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Fuck. And there's also this thing of, I've also heard this too, where producers and people in Hollywood are adverse from not using CG because practical effects, they'll go like, oh, it just looks like an old movie.
Right.
They'll say that, like, it looks like an old movie. And they don't want to make an old movie. They want to make hip, new, young movies, you know?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, sure. Okay. Well,
so, yeah. But I'm really interested. I never gave a shit about Eternals before. Chloe Zhao did fucking great.
With Nomadland.
With Nomadland. If the whole movie is just A-list actors in silly costumes just roaming the U.S. in this sort of quiet, transcendent discovery of a little different part of America, I'd be cool with that. She's proven herself to be a good director, so I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm legitimately excited. That's the Marvel movie that I'm really excited about. Mm-hmm. The rest, I'm curious about Shang-Chi. Yeah. I'm anxious about Black Widow. Hopeful, but anxious about it. And Spider-Man 3, well, I like Tom Holland. I like him a lot. And I'll be there to see him. Everything else, I guess it'll be a good time. You will probably be dying on the inside.
It'll be borderline sacrilegious for me.
But you'll be there opening night.
Well, yes, but still. It'll be like The Lion King. I am here to be angry.
Oh, that's unfair. It can't be anywhere near
No,
as
it's not going to be as bad as
The
Lion King.
It'll be. I get the point you're making, but yeah.
You ever see that meme from Bob's Burgers? Where he's like, fine, I'll go, but I'll complain the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That'll be me.
I'll go, but I'll complain the whole time. But just that's usually how you can be with these screenings. HBO Max is doing something interesting. So at the moment, I believe it stands at the most expensive streaming service. I think it's like $17 a month, which is the highest of all the streaming services. So they are going to offer a less expensive version with ads. So think of it as like Hulu, or the cheapest version of Hulu with ads. I think it's going to be like $10 or like $9 or $10 a month. It's an interesting approach. Peter, what do you make of this?
What I'm most interested about this is if it affects subscriptions.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons why it might be a little bit low on subscriptions is because it is so goddamn expensive.
Yeah.
I think it's the most expensive streaming service.
It is.
I think it's a good streaming service, but it is expensive. So I don't know. I feel like that should maybe be taken into account as far as...
Of course it should. Yeah.
How successful or not successful it is, but I feel like
again, you and I
ever
agree
brings
that the big thing with them is that they don't have an original show that's making headlines.
That's the real
That's
issue.
the big thing, because when it comes to everything else, I think the price is, I think, honestly, a bit big to swallow. Kyle, if you're out there, I know you're laughing about that. Yeah, I said that. For those of you who think wrong-mindedly, if that's the way, but it's the truth. That being said, though, I think it is an amazing streaming service. It has a lot of library content that I think a lot of people would love to see. I mean, The Nanny is a big show. So was The Big Bang Theory. It ran for 12 seasons. So was Friends. How that is not generating attention, I don't understand. I mean, they paid a lot of money for that. There's Rick and Morty on there. And they have classic Cartoon Network shows like Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Great Adventures of Billy and Mandy. They have the Studio Ghibli films. They have Adult Swim.
A lot of old...
The classic Warner Brothers, the Turner Classic Movies films are up on there, like Casablanca and Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane's not the best film anymore. So.
No. The DC films are there, like, and of course they're dropping like theatrical films monthly.
Snyder Cut?
I know, like, there's a bunch of like great library content, and I think like they're just missing a Mandalorian, The Boys. They're missing a big signature series, and there's still no movement on that. And I think the big one, quote unquote, that we're supposed to be getting, I think, is the Peacemaker show from James Gunn, right?
That seems to be the first big one that they'll have.
But in all honesty, do you think that's going to catch fire the way that Mandalorian has?
It's hard to tell.
It has John Cena, and he is a big name for sure. That'll get attention.
Yeah. I guess we really have to wait and see how
the
Suicide Squad itself is received and how much people give a shit about that character.
Right.
I think that has something really big to go with it. But I feel it, even then, it needs its own original show that is, I think at this point it has to be connected to some big property.
Well, they do have some original programming, not from there, but now since the streaming service DC Universe has now been converted to like a comics only thing, a lot of their original shows have been transferred over. So like, I know the shows Doom Patrol and the Harley Quinn animated series, they have some big fan bases. They're also very well received among critics. And for future seasons of those shows, they'll be on there. You have to imagine that's going to get some attention, right?
Yeah, for sure. But you need a Game of Thrones. You need a show that everyone's talking about that they want to watch week to week. That's how you get them.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how it works.
That's Disney Plus's model. Because they have the library content, and that's a big selling factor. But they hardly make any shows. But they have this thing where they use their big shows that are connected to their big film universes, and they release it week to week, and that gets the attention week to week, and that builds momentum and subscriptions week to week to week. That's the one thing HBO Max is missing.
Yeah, because like, let's say you subscribe, and even if it's for one show, you're like, okay, I'm watching it week to week. So you kind of forget that you're paying and you're just watching it week to week.
Yeah.
And then you're watching another show, and then all of a sudden you forget and you're just enjoying the subscription. And it's all of a sudden you've kept it, even if you had planned to not keep it for long. But because it's week to week, it keeps you there. But this isn't even Disney Plus. This is how it's been from the beginning, like Netflix. People got invested because of House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, and then eventually
people forget
Stranger
that.
Things.
Yeah.
Stranger Things was the big 4-quadrant show
still
for
is.
them.
Yeah,
it still is. Whenever it comes back, and that's how it worked, right? Like that's what got Netflix its momentum. That's what's happening with Disney Plus. That's what's happening with Amazon, right?
Yeah.
We just talked about
Invincible,
and everyone's talking about The Boys.
Yeah,
and you
And
get
they have a big
hit.
show coming up that they stole from WB, and that is Lord of the Rings.
It's so funny. Every time I hear about that show, it's like Amazon is spending $2 trillion per episode for the Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, can I be honest with you? I think that's a bad idea.
It is, but if anybody can afford it, Jeff Bezos can.
I think it's a waste of money.
It
They
is,
are not
but if
gonna
anybody
compare
can
to the
waste money,
films.
Jeff Bezos can.
I'm gonna watch it just because I want to see what 10 trillion an episode looks like. Because every time I hear about it, the budget goes up.
Yeah.
Like an insane amount. But yeah, no, like that's absolutely what you need. But I guess going back to the main story, it'll be interesting to see if they get a bump because it's cheaper, right? Because maybe it's like, well, there's no show they want to watch week to week, but like we said, there is good stuff. There's Harley Quinn, and there's other movies, and they go like, I'm not gonna pay $15 to watch that shit. And it's like, oh no, you can $5.99 version, and they're like, oh.
Arguably,
Okay.
like HBO Max may have the most variety of all the streaming services.
I think it does, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's easily one of the best streamers. It's just, it's growing pains right now.
Yeah. I wonder though, do you think on the flip side, do you think it could be a potential adverse effect because you're basically introducing a third version of the streaming service? Because now you have the HBO Max proper, you have the HBO Max ad version, and then you also have HBO Now, which is not going away anytime soon.
I say no because other streamers have ad
Hulu
versions. Hulu, right? And it's not really an issue, right?
No.
You could just say, literally in the commercials, be like, ad, $6.99 with ads, right? Or however much it's going to be. It's not as confusing as like HBO and HBO Max and HBO. Like, that's a disaster. I really think they shouldn't have called it HBO Max, but they're sticking to it. It's been too long. They got to stick to it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think the ads should bring any of that confusion.
Other shows you can watch on there: Curb Your Enthusiasm, Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Game of Thrones, all the HBO content, Euphoria with Zendaya. There's just The Flight Attendant with Kaylee Cuoco. They have a lot of stuff on there. Not that I've seen it personally, but it's like, and if also you're a fan of film, how do you not have this streaming service? Like Turner Classic Movies. Like it's there.
One day I'm just gonna go watching all the old films, you know, and I'm gonna go on a spree of watching all of them.
Okay, speaking of old films, this is a story that caused a bit of a hubbub here. Paddington 2 has dethroned Citizen Kane as the top-rated film on Rotten Tomatoes. This happened after an 80-year-old review resurfaced and made it slip from 100% to 99%. Peter, what the fuck?
This story is so funny to me. What's so funny is they're like, yeah, we randomly found this old ass review, 80 years old, and if you read the review, it's like, it kind of sucked. Like the review is kind of funny reading it. Like, it wasn't that great. And I'm just imagining reading it in like an old timey voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Paddington 2 like overtook it is just, it's so funny. And of course the memes that have come from it are so, they're great. Like I saw one, you know how they have like, it's that picture of like him talking with like the huge portrait behind him.
I have that poster basically.
Yeah, they have like Paddington inserted into it.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, it's
all
cute.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it's cute.
Yeah.
This to me is a funny story. It's a fun story.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think any of this means anything, but it is funny to be like, Paddington 2, the greatest film of all time, has dethroned. That fucking marmalade eating bear has dethroned Orson Welles. Orson Welles, you hack.
All of this the same week, the movie based on the writer of Citizen Kane wins more Oscars than Citizen Kane won.
Oh, that's true. It did win a bit, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, every movie basically won 2, and then the big winner won 3, so
it's
only
more
so
than
many.
I thought it would win.
Yeah. That's just hilarious. And then we got a new trailer for the Disney Pixar film Luca. I don't know what's going on. I'm not normally so taken with trailers with Pixar films. They're usually very hit or miss, mostly miss. Case in point, I hated the Toy Story 4 trailers. I ended up loving the film. I love the trailers for Soul. I ended up liking the film, not overall loving it. So that's weird. And so here we are. Onward, I was kind of indifferent toward the trailers, and I liked the film. And then with Luca, I kind of really love these trailers. I'm kind of ready for this movie. It looks really good, and it's
no extra charge.
It's not going to be in theaters, and I am getting pissed about that.
Right? I'm sorry. I don't know if this is like a different story or whatever, but like
we will talk about this.
Okay,
I'll talk about this now since we're going to go to it. So Pixar. Yeah. Pixar staff speaks out against Disney moving its films to streaming only. Several Pixar staffers spoke anonymously to Insider to criticize Disney's decision to move some of the animation studio titles exclusively to the streaming platform Disney+. Quote unquote, Luca doesn't even have a premium price next to it, one staffer told Insider. Does it make it lesser? It's hard to grasp. We don't want to be a title just on Disney+, another staffer who is working on several upcoming Pixar movies added. Several Pixar sources said Pete Docter was not happy with Disney's decision to move Soul onto Disney+ exclusively. So that's what you're talking about, Peter. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I don't blame them.
Of course
right?
not.
Like
yeah.
they pour their heart and soul because, like, Soul. Speaking of that film, like that film was the animation, incredible, truly incredible, and you know that film was made for a movie theater, right?
Yeah.
And it just didn't even get the opportunity. That's the thing. These films aren't even getting... It's not like, well, we're releasing them same day and date. You can either see it in Disney Plus or see it. No. You don't even get the opportunity to see it in a movie theater. You will never be able to see Soul in a movie theater. And it's like, wow, like, that sucks. And Luca, it looks great.
It does. It's beautiful. I love how it opened with the underwater. I'm a sucker for underwater scenes, and it looked
clearly,
obviously. But I loved it. And just the whole feel of it, the whole look of it, the Italian Riviera, I guess, inspired location of it. I love how you have, I think, Dylan Grazer, right? Dylan Grazer or Jack Grazer? I don't remember what his name is. He's the kid from It and Shazam 2.
Yes.
And then you also have Jacob Tremblay. These are the,
of course.
Yeah.
Fucking Tremblay.
Who are voicing these two. And I'm excited for this, and it just got me so angry and depressed that I can't see this.
If they had an older brother, he would have been voiced by Tom Holland.
Yeah. But they already got him last year with Onward.
They already did that.
Yeah, did you forget?
You're fucking predictable, Disney. No, but I'm really hoping that this movie, like, nothing happens in it. And that might sound weird, but you've never seen a Studio Ghibli film, right?
I've seen Spirited Away, and I've seen bits of Howl's Moving Castle. Yeah.
Okay, well, not those. But like his earlier films, for sure, kind of nothing happens.
I know what you're saying, basically. The plot is kind of a thing. There really isn't much of a story plot. It's just the characters living in this space, and you get to know them, basically, right?
Like Kiki's Delivery Service. I read the thing before I watched it, and it's like, oh, it's a young witch who sets out to moves to a new town and tries to open up a delivery service. And I was like, okay, like that's the inciting incident, and then stuff will happen. No, that's it. The whole movie is just like her, meeting new people, setting up a delivery service, just taking in the sights and stuff. Like it's so quaint and quiet. And then the one that everyone always talks about, what's it called?
Spirited Away?
No. The one with the big furry. Totoro. My Neighbor Totoro. Mm-hmm. That's another one where it's like everyone swears by it, and I saw it and I'm like, oh my god, like nothing happens in the film.
And it's surprising because these days that's kind of a recipe for disaster with mainstream audiences. They cannot stand movies where there's no plot, which is in high contrast to you and I, where we kind of side with the Del Toros of the world, where like plot is kind of the least interesting thing in movies.
Yeah. And looking at this, I know it won't happen, but I kind of want it to be like a Studio Ghibli film where it's literally just these kids and they're in Italy and they're enjoying themselves and they're having a good time.
Can that fly with American audiences?
Fuck them. I don't know. I don't care. I'm talking about what I want, okay? I'm an American. I only care about me. You can't spell America without M-E, all right?
Oh. Okay.
And then, maybe at the end you have the town with pitchforks trying to get them because they're fish, and then it's quickly resolved.
Yeah.
But just kind of having most of the film just sort of be this experience rather than plot heavy stuff, I kind of want that, right? But I also understand that I'm probably not gonna get that, so I'm trying not to be tied to that idea because I don't want to judge the film on that.
It's important to, and I have to stress this for everyone, to keep expectations in check. And oftentimes I find that when I have low expectations, I end up being rewarded in a way most people aren't, because high expectations can definitely taint how you view something, because if you're underwhelmed by something that has such high expectations, and also there are with expectations, you could have your heart set on something happening or a story coming to a conclusion that you would wish for, and it doesn't do that. We talk about many times here that we feel many of the people who hate The Last Jedi hate it primarily because it just didn't do all the theories that it didn't happen. Like with WandaVision. WandaVision was a big show where it was nothing about people spent weeks speculating about what could happen, and it didn't deliver on those crazy batshit theories, and people were disappointed by it. Keep your expectations in check. Like for me, the film we're talking about this week, I was initially excited for it. Then the first wave of reviews came, and they were very mixed to kind of unkind toward it. I think you saw the film during that first wave of release. And so I kind of put that in the back burner, and then I saw that film, talking about Mank, get a little bit of a preview to it. And then I ended up enjoying it in ways I couldn't even believe because of how many bad things I heard about it. So keep in mind, and I don't know if that's fair because, I mean, we'll talk about it when we talk about it, obviously, but you can tell that that's how expectations can sway how you feel about something, you know?
Yeah, I would just say don't come in, be malleable, right?
Sure.
You can go in, I think you can go in with expectations or hoping for this, hoping for that, maybe excited. Mm-hmm. Just don't be tied to anything.
Yeah,
right? Like be open to seeing something that you weren't expecting. Because that helped us with The Last Jedi. I sure as hell went in there with certain expectations of wanting certain things. I didn't get them, but I was malleable. I was like, okay, I'm getting something different. How does this feel? And I really enjoyed it. So I think it can help with the viewing it, because I do see that a lot where people get all excited, like, oh, for sure this is going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. And it's like, oh, man, like they set up this expectation in their head. And because it didn't happen, they're like kind of pissed off. Like, why didn't it happen? Well, no one else put that expectation in your head but you. Like, what do you mean, why didn't it happen? So, yeah. But no, as far as this trailer goes, it's nice. It's cute.
Hilarious too in moments.
Yeah, but like all Pixar trailers, I'm not exactly sure what it'll be.
I appreciate that about Pixar trailers, you know? We need more of that. A little bit more mystery in what the films are when we see them. And in most cases, I am pleasantly surprised to find out what that film actually is. But to the bigger story, it is kind of just sad because, and I'm with the people and the employees at Pixar because it just feels like they're getting the short shrift from the studio. And in reality, Pixar consistently makes the best films that come out of Disney.
Yeah. They're the best right now. Mm-hmm. And I would say they're the most... Well, maybe they're neck and neck with Marvel. I don't know.
The most profitable, you mean?
Well, I was just thinking because Pixar had a pretty long run of sequels.
Well, are you talking about consistency from a financial standpoint or from a critical standpoint?
I was thinking more personal, like...
Okay.
Artistic standpoint.
Gotcha.
I'll say artistic.
Okay.
But yeah, an artistic standpoint.
It's only lately I think they've gotten back to that. They had a couple years where it was Bob Iger was like, get me some sequels. And Lasseter was like, okay, I'll get you some sequels. Everybody knew what that was about. But ever since Lasseter's gone and Doctor's on board, I'm really loving Pixar again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They've reinstated the no hugging policy.
Okay, let's get to the Academy Awards, shall we? So they happened. Nobody watched them. Nobody was ever going to watch them, and I can't blame anybody for not watching them. Of course they were awful. They went down 58%. Nobody was going to watch these for the same reasons nobody watches them every year. People don't know these movies. They never heard of these movies. People didn't even go to the movies last year because they were closed. Of course, what outcome could you have expected out of this? On top of the fact that the show, in terms of how it was produced, was the most boring awards show I have ever seen in my life. It was the single worst Oscars I've ever seen. More on that in a bit. But let's get with the most important thing out of the way with and inform you of who won. So, Nomadland and Chloe Zhao win big at the Academy Awards. Nomadland won for Best Picture, as we predicted, and also Chloe Zhao for Best Director. Anthony Hopkins, surprising most people, but we had some suspicions.
Including Anthony Hopkins.
Including Anthony Hopkins. Winning Best Actor for his performance in The Father. This is his second win in this category since winning for Best Lead Actor for Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs.
But he was
submitted for lead. He didn't win for...
Really?
Yeah. You know how they work.
See, this is why I told you we can't go by the award shows. They're full of shit.
Yeah, so yeah, he did. Even though that's a supporting role, right? But it's
clearly a supporting role. It's ridiculous.
He won for lead actor. I saw the clip on YouTube. They have all those old clips of him winning. So he's, by the way, that man has aged well. He kind of looks the same. Mm-hmm. So good for him. And we'll have more about Hopkins in a minute. Frances McDormand wins Best Actress for Nomadland. This was very unexpected. It was a highly contested race. Many experts had it as a four-way race between Frances, Viola Davis, Carey Mulligan, and Andra Day. It may have been the closest race ever, but this is McDormand's fourth Oscar. I think this is her third Oscar for lead. I think she now officially has more Oscars in the lead category for Best Actress since Meryl Streep.
I was gonna say the Academy really loves her.
Yeah.
So maybe it shouldn't be too much of a shock, because if it's a close race,
yeah, then
it'll come down to their favorite. So,
and good for her. I think she's cool.
Oh, she's my favorite
great.
hippie.
Yeah. Here we have from Minati, Yu Young Young, or YJ, as she has encouraged those who can't pronounce her name to call her, as she has described in interviews. She won Best Supporting Actress. She's the first Korean in history to win an Oscar.
Damn.
Yeah.
Like any Oscar?
Any Oscar.
Holy
I think, well,
shit.
In particular with acting, I think.
Okay.
So there is that. She had an interesting moment where she was kind of like throwing shade at Brad Pitt. She produced her film, and yet he never met her or any of the people on set. So a little bit of a cute moment there for her. Daniel Kaluuya wins Best Supporting Actor for Judas and the Black Messiah, and he thanked his parents for having sex. That was the speech that he made.
What was funny is the mom did not look amused.
No, she thinks she mouthed, "What the fuck is he talking about?" or something like that.
She was pissed.
Yeah, she wasn't happy. Emerald Fennel, I'm happy for her. Camilla from The Crown, she had her directorial debut, or actually I think, her feature debut with Promising Young Woman, and she wins Best Original Screenplay. She's the first woman to win an award for writing at the Oscars in 13 years.
Well, I guess this proves only one thing. Women, you need to step up your game.
Oh my God. The writers for The Father win Best Adapted Screenplay.
What was it adapted from?
That's a very good question. I think a book? I don't know. I should know this. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. It has to be a book of some sort. Sound of Metal won 2 Oscars. It won for film editing, and hilariously, it won for sound editing. The Sound of Metal.
That would make me laugh.
I mean,
that's the Academy being the Academy.
Mank, the film we'll talk about in a bit, won for cinematography. That was a bit of an upset. We thought that Nomadland would win for cinematography, but Mank won for that one, and also for production design.
Again, the Academy being the Academy.
Yeah.
It's always a period piece.
Yeah. But beautifully made film. So
yeah, of course.
Not too upset about that one. I have to say, for the most part, I'm very happy with a lot of these winners. Not really much to complain.
Mm-hmm.
Ma Rainey won 2 Oscars for hair and makeup and for costume design. And this one, there really was no alternative, although
I'm just, I have mixed feelings now with Nolan, but his movie Tenet won for best visual effects. Who else are they going to give it to? So, I mean,
that one was a done deal from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Academy loves Christopher Nolan. He's the only one they accept when it comes to blockbusters. They're like, okay.
Curiously enough, though, this is the worst performing movie of his at the Academy in a long time. Usually his movies get a lot more nominations than just one. This is his only nomination.
Even Inception?
Inception didn't that get a Best Picture nomination?
Oh my god, did it?
I think it did. Inception, there was Dunkirk, there was...
Dunkirk, that makes sense.
Interstellar even got a couple more nominations. Yeah. So, again, nobody saw it. Yeah. I think that was the thing. Soul, we just talked about Pixar, they won, for the 1000th time, they won Best Animated Feature.
Why do they even have Best Animated Feature?
Because Pixar. The justification...
No, but don't just call it Best Disney Animated Film.
Yeah. I know.
Don't call it Best Disney Animated Film.
Pete Docter got on stage to accept. It was sad that Kemp Powers couldn't be there to accept the award. He did co-direct and co-write the screenplay. And then also won Best Original Score for Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, and John Batiste.
That was a great score.
Yeah. It is, yeah. Another Round, directed by Thomas Vinterberg, won Best International Film, dedicating the film to his daughter, I believe, who passed before.
Of course, it's already in the talks for an American remake.
Yeah, I will say, I looked at what the film was about, and that's on my list to watch. And I think it is on Hulu, right, to stream?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to have that film on the docket to talk about.
It's been on my list because I've been hearing about it for months now.
Mm-hmm.
I know Guillermo del Toro wrote on Twitter. Sometimes he'll tweet when he sees a movie.
Yeah.
And he really loved it. But he also did the same for Star and Bar, Go to Crystal
Barb and
Dome.
Star. Yeah, Barb and Star.
By the way, did the same for that. So.
Real quick. Mads Mikkelsen's in the movie there. So for you Mads fans, he is another round. Yeah, Barb and Star should host the Oscars next year. They're your host. Done.
You know what? And this is another thing where it's like, this is how you could get more people to watch. And I think it's not sacrificing anything as far as what do you call it, like lowering, because
you're not lowering your standards.
You don't want to lower, it's prestigious, but it's like Barb and Star should have been nominated for some shit. I'll say it.
Yeah, I don't think it made the I think they're going to submit it for stuff next year.
Okay. I better see an original song in there.
It better.
Mm-hmm.
It better get an original song in there. I know which one you're talking about. It fucking better. Judas actually won for song, and this one I actually was upset about. It should have been Husavik from Eurovision.
Yeah.
That should have won, and I was so pissed. We'll talk about this at length, I guess now, but in many ways, the ceremony was very lackluster for various reasons, one of which primarily is they relegated all of the musical performances to a fucking pre-show. So it wasn't in the Oscars telecast. God. And I've seen some of those performances. I don't know if you've seen the performance for Husavik. It was beautiful. They filmed it outdoors at Iceland, and they had fireworks. It was an amazing performance. And that could have been more than enough to make in the telecast.
Why? That's ridiculous. And see, this is the thing. Maybe if you had cut an 3-hour show down to 2 hours, I could understand.
But it was still over 3 hours.
Still over 3 hours. Oh my God. Yeah, no, I agree with you. This was maybe the worst Oscars I've ever seen. It was insanely boring. I guess they relegated all the interesting stuff to the pre-show.
Maybe.
And they decided to fill the main show with just talking.
Talking and talking and talking.
Just talking and talking and talking about each other. Like, oh, this actor, she's great. She's a woman of color. We're all very progressive, very good people. See how good we are. America.
And at times it wasn't even just that. It was more like random trivia or like biographies.
Yeah, just talking about this person's whole life and shit, and it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, this is boring. Like, you're just talking. It's just talking, right? It's not even footage. Hey, maybe while you're talking about this person, you're showing footage or pictures of them when they were younger, or home movies of them as kids, and it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cute. But like, not even that. It's just like talking about them. You had said, and I thought, like, I guess this might be interesting. Like, oh, it was going to be shot like a film. It was going to be like a film.
Because Steven Soderbergh was producing.
They did nothing with that concept.
Nothing, yeah.
Nothing whatsoever, right? And what I had assumed, and I was like, this is actually an interesting experiment. Like, if it fails, whatever. But you can at least say you tried something new and interesting this year, especially in the age of COVID, which is, I thought it would, like, the whole night would be sort of framed like a film. There would be scripted scenes throughout, and like, you have, like, again, this is where you could have a host, and like the host is like the main character. Yeah. And in between the awards, like, you're showing these scripted scenes taking place, and there's like some loose story going on, right? And I was like, oh, like, that could be fun. That could be interesting. You get like all the nominees involved into it as well.
None of that. Instead, what you got were just a bunch of obnoxious, fancy camera angles. These long, like, walkways, off-center camera angles of the acceptance speeches. It was the most boring thing you could do imaginable.
No, it was terrible. There was just nothing to. And then, of course, the biggest thing of all.
Before we get to that, I want to make sure I drive this thing home. So Johnny Olensinski, he writes for the New York Post. This is his headline of his review for the Oscars. Oscars 2021 tortured viewers for more than 3 unbearable hours. If you open the window and listen closely Sunday night, you could hear it. The sound of millions of remote controls changing the channel during the 2021 Oscars. Oh my God. He calls this, at one point, he compared the ceremony to a kindergarten graduation ceremony.
Yes, it felt like one of those things you're dragged to.
Mm-hmm, that you don't want to be there. He says,
have you ever been dragged to a graduation?
Yes, they're not fun. No. At this event, which ostensibly is meant to celebrate the movies, we rarely saw clips of any of the films. Rather, we were told trivia about the nominees. So-and-so used to work as a telemarketer. What's his name? Researched his role really super hard. When the cinematography, editing, and acting nominees were called out, viewers didn't get to see their extraordinary output. We listened to dumb tidbits available online. We couldn't even... They were so up their own ass about, like, these bios and trivia. We were confused that they were actually setting up an award, like, oh, they're going to announce this award. And when they said Best Adapted Screenplay, I'm like, wait, what? When? Hey, okay. Oh my goodness. Meanwhile, our eyes couldn't take this self-righteous snooze fest. The camera work was purposefully shaky. The acceptance speeches were shot pretentiously off-center. The cinematic frame rate robbed this news event of electricity. They could make a buck selling this telecast as a smartphone sleep improvement app. At least with your average kindergarten graduation, the cute little kids sing a tune. This year, all the best song nominees were relegated to the red carpet pre-show, which even fewer people watch. There was no variety to spice things up. The Oscars Oh, yeah. They talked and talked and talked. And when we finally reached the in memoriam, beloved lost Hollywood royalty like Sean Connery, Chadwick Boseman, Ennio Morricone, Carl Reiner, Christopher Plummer, and Cloris Leachman were sped through like an afterthought. How doesn't Hollywood understand that audiences expect a night of entertainment from their entertainers? The politics, the slobbering adoration, and overrated introductions are hardly ever tolerable, but even more so when they're not balanced by fun. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary.
That's perfectly put, right? Like, it's insane to me that the movie business is incapable of putting on a competent show.
They can't put on a show. It was a kindergarten assembly. It wasn't a night of entertainment. It was it was boring watching the Academy Awards. It was boring.
Yeah, it was boring. Nothing was happening. And like we kept waiting for stuff to happen, and they're like, "Oh no, they're still talking about themselves. Okay, let's mute this shit for like a minute or two because God, like just anything, right? Like,
yeah,
anything." They've pulled stupid stunts in the past, but at least with those stunts, like it's something. I don't know, but here they just gave up.
This is how Vulture described, and I think the big thing that happened at the end, the show closed off in a worse position than it actually began with. And look, the whole night was boring. They were talking about themselves, like self-adoration, all of the... Look, I don't want to come off as somebody that complains about them talking about politics, but it just comes off as fake with them. Like they're Hollywood. Like they just say these nice things as if they had any credit in any of what happened this last year.
You know what's worse? It doesn't feel like they're trying to bring awareness to anything. It just seems like they're trying to pat themselves on the back. For being such good people.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if they're talking about politics, because it's like, hey, like I want to. We need to make a change, you know, this is important, da 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 da. But like 90% of the time when they bring it up, it's just to go like, Hollywood did such a good job. We actually hired black people. Aren't we such saints? And then they pat themselves on the back, and it's just like, oh my God.
Nobody's buying this.
Fuck off. Yeah. Yeah. No. It becomes I think I joked like I'm gonna turn into a hardcore conservative watching this shit. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah, Vulture basically summarized this night. I have a short one and a longer one. They said that by the time it got to 10:45 Eastern time, everything started tilting sideways. Glenn Close danced to the butt. The in memoriam.
That was fine.
The in memoriam segment moved so fast it bordered on parody. Then the portion of the ceremony traditionally designed to be a big climactic wind-up to Best Picture instead collapsed in a half-deflated heap, leaving Joaquin Phoenix and Questlove somehow in charge of wrapping things up and sending everyone home. So on top of this boring ceremony, things ended up taking a turn for the worse. This is how Vulture describes it, right? That's how this year's Academy Awards broadcast ended. Not with a bang, but with a fart. The Steven Soderbergh produced ceremony broke from tradition in a number of ways, one of which was presenting Best Picture third from last instead of ending with it as a grand finale. Presumably, this is because the Academy predicted that Chadwick Boseman would be posthumously awarded in the final category, actor in a leading role, for his performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So they trotted out last year's winner, Joaquin Phoenix, visibly against his will, to mumble about what it means to be an actor before presenting the award to Anthony Hopkins for The Father. Anthony Hopkins, who last won the same award in 1992 for Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins, who was not in attendance. Before anyone had time to figure out what was going on, the awards show just ended. No outro music, no big speech on Hopkins' behalf, just cut to commercial. Instead, viewers were left with a snubbed, stunned silence.
That was the only interesting part of the night. And
right? And it sucked.
And it sucked. It was so weird, right? Like, what utter bullshit for them to switch around. You always end on Best Picture. I don't give a fuck. You know what happened. You end on big, and it. I'm sorry, it just came off real sleazy.
It did.
like, oh yeah, we're gonna end on Chadwick Boseman winning, and then
we're gonna capitalize off this person's death. That's what it felt like.
We'll watch his widow cry, and the ratings will go up. You know, and oh my gosh, it was so weird because what's his name for being an actor? Like he's just so awkward. Joaquin Phoenix already. So you're having him try to close out the night. And then, you know, he's like, you know, best actor goes to Anthony Hopkins. And like, you don't even really get to see the reactions from people.
No.
Because one of the main things you see is reaction shots when people win. They quickly cut away from the reaction shots, goes right back to Joaquin. He can't be here today. The Academy accepts the award on his behalf. Walks away, and then Questlove is like, it's over, guys. See you later. And like, that's it. It's insane. Oh my God.
Worst ending ever.
Terrible.
That was the worst ending I've seen in a long time. And all of it could have been avoided if they had just stuck to tradition in that sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, like there were... This just robbed a lot of people of moments that they should have had. Perry Nemiroff actually brought this up, and that is, she was really pissed off because she felt that they really took away from Chloe Zhao's big moment.
They did, and 100%.
Chloe Zhao, because Chloe Zhao, they presented her directing category like an hour before they even got to Best Picture. And then they presented Best Picture third to last, and it's like, the whole thing should have been Nomadland's moment. Like, it's the movie where a group of people, all the people who are there who worked on the film come up and they accept and they have like this big hurrah moment. Like you just climbed the mountain, and they took that away from them.
Yeah, that's why it's the big ender for the night.
Yeah.
Because the whole group that worked on that film rushes the stage, and it's a big moment, and you know, people are always like, oh my God, you know, easily my favorite Academy Awards in recent memory has to be 2019, last year's, because of Parasite. Because of the wins were awesome, the reactions, the speeches. It was so good. It was so good. And this year, man.
Anything that could go wrong went wrong, and then some. Like, there were people, let me be clear about this. There were people who actually were complimenting how boring it was. And I couldn't believe some of these people because they're supposed to be industry professionals and I trust their voices. But, like, I was just shocked that people were actually enjoying this. People don't know these movies. On top of them, they're not being shown clips. There's no orchestra in attendance. It is just people talking at them for hours. It is so fucking boring. How can you think it was good to begin with? And then when this stuff happens, it gets real bad, real awkward. And like, I couldn't blame them for wanting to cut the camera because they fucked up. They fucked up. Like, they would not be in this position if they had just said, we'll leave it off with Best Picture. Because then the awkwardness that came out of the Best Actor thing could have been resolved with a win by Chloe Zhao and then Nomadland.
Yes. It would have been perfect. Never not end on Best Picture. Number one rule.
So that's with Chloe Zhao and Nomadland's side of it. And then we get to... we get to Best Actor, and because they had arranged it this way, I was like, okay, well, Chadwick's going to win. And everybody else was like, well, of course, Chadwick's going to win. And I remember we were just watching, we were waiting for it, and I was thinking before, oh my God, they have built this to such an anticipation. If Chadwick doesn't win, this is going to be a real awkward moment. And then when Joaquin read Anthony Hopkins' name, we were all collectively just shocked, laughing, gasping. Laughing. Oh my God, they really did this shit. And look, that's not to say that Chadwick was owed this win. It's only awkward because they had built up to this climactic moment. They have a live audience there. His widow is there. And it makes it even more awkward because Hopkins is not there. And so no one's there to even give a speech. It just ends. And when you think about also, it didn't have to be that way either. Hopkins could have very well have given a speech, but they said no to him. Do you know why they said no to him? Because he didn't look. They had a location in London. Olivia Colman was there, but she couldn't stick around for whatever reason. Hopkins lives in Wales, which is a little bit remote from where London is. He, an 83-year-old man, did not want to travel from his home in Wales to London in a pandemic. I think anyone can understand why he wouldn't want to travel during a pandemic considering his age, right? Mm-hmm. We should all understand that. But the crazy thing is, it didn't have to be that way. Kyle Buchanan of the New York Times actually confirmed that Hopkins his people offered to zoom into the ceremony, to be there, live. And for him, it would have been staying up at 5 a.m., which is why he was asleep when he won Best Actor. But the Academy was like, we have this rule this year. We're trying to break this week. If you come in through Zoom, it would break our illusion of it being not a pandemic Oscars. They had this no Zoom rule. And yes, that is absolutely as stupid and asinine as it sounds, as the way I'm describing it. That was their excuse. It didn't have to be as awkward. They could have let Hopkins come in and zoomed in for his speech. Instead, it all just ended, and we heard from him the next morning where he woke up visibly stunned, like, oh shit, I won the Oscar? Where he was like, good morning, I'm 83, I didn't expect to win this. I want to, pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman and his family. Thank you
I'm sure they all yelled at him to do that.
I'm honored to receive this, and then that was it. And it was just bad because the producers fucked this up every way imaginable. ABC executive Rob Mills says the ending of the Oscars with Best Actor was a calculated risk that I think still paid off because everybody was talking about fuck you.
No.
Fuck you.
Not all press is good press. Sorry.
And it also just robs from Hopkins. Because I was rooting for him.
I think his moment.
I think he deserved that win, frankly.
The fact that he didn't get to experience that win is pretty fucked up. That was taken from him. It literally. I think that's what's so frustrating. It fucked over everyone.
Yeah.
It fucked over Anthony Hopkins. It fucked over Chadwick Boseman. It fucked over Chloe Zhao. It fucked over me because of a fucking boring ass show. Everyone got fucked over.
Yeah, things need to change. It was abysmal. I think abysmal is even too much of a compliment. It was awful. It was a disaster. I was bored and then I was pissed.
Yeah. That was the direction of the night.
And isn't that pretty sad on a night where I was pretty happy with the overall winners of the actual awards? Usually I'm pissed off because of movies that end up winning that I don't like. And now I'm pissed off for a different reason.
It was the universe trying to balance itself.
Yeah, but Peter, you know what's actually a bitch here? It's like in theory, if you look at how they structured this year's ceremony, they did most of the things that you recommended they do. They did away with most of the unnecessary filler with the lame comedy bits. They had no opening monologue.
There were no like useless performances for the most part. Like these are all recommendations you made, and yet they did them, and they did them in the worst way possible. It's still fucked up. But then they
still filled up that time with a lecture. If you get rid of stuff, like bad stuff, and then replace it with worse stuff, you're not making it better.
No.
If they had literally just streamlined the night where it's like, go, 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 go.
Just present the awards.
And we were out of there in like 2.5 hours, I would go like, well, you know, okay. You know, it was paced well. We went. Maybe I wouldn't be in love with it. But I would go, at least you're not wasting my time. You know, you're getting in and you're getting out. But...
And you know, I was also angry at this. Like, at least we could have almost said this year would have been a year where they eliminated all of the useless lame bits. But then it came, like, toward the last hour of the night, nothing was happening, and they send out... What's his name? What was the person the actor that was like trying to cobble that bit at the last minute?
I don't know why like Riri is in my head. Is it something like that?
I don't know. Look, I like him a lot, but he was given awful material, and they sent him out there to do this lame bit where he was like awkwardly talking to the people who were in the audience, trying to get them to like do some kind of interactive thing. Why the last hour? These things don't work, and then what really pissed me off is we wasted like fucking 10 minutes on that, and it came at a consequence where the in memoriam, that really was upsetting. So many big names died, and it was like, it felt like it was being played like in fast forward.
Yeah, they picked a quick song. You're dead, dead and out of this world. It was like the intro credits.
That is
I'm sorry. The shadows.
That is immensely disrespectful.
Yeah.
That's
because they
awful.
always have like a really sad, slow song.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they even there, you know, for some of the bigger names, they have clips of their acting a little bit as they're. And here it's just like. You're dead and gone.
You're dead and gone.
Bye-bye. You know, like real quick, and it's like, damn, okay. So many awkward choices, and it's crazy because it feels like every choice was the wrong one.
Every choice was the wrong one, and even like, I hate it in a normal telecast when they play off people off the stage. But you know what? This year. They didn't play anybody off, and I'm on the opposite end of it, where like they let people talk too long in their acceptance speeches. They were up there forever.
Some people just do ramble, and you gotta cut them off.
You gotta cut them off, and oh god, it was awful in every single way.
Mm-hmm. I can't even think of a bright spot.
The winners, but that had nothing to do with the quality of the show.
I'm thinking about like the show itself.
Yeah, no.
Even the venue looked kind of whatever.
It was small because they couldn't hold it in the theater because of COVID regulations, COVID restrictions. I don't know why they couldn't just do Zoom.
Just do Zoom. Whatever.
Yeah, that was disappointing. So those were the Academy Awards this year. Peter, let's get on to, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about Mank at the moment. So you can pull up on your phone the Letterboxd synopsis for the movie, which is on Netflix. I believe this debuted last December, I think.
Yep.
Peter had watched it then. I just watched it this last week. It won 2 Oscars. So let's get into our review of Mank.
Mank, directed by David Fincher. 1930s Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane. Starring Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Lily Collins, Tom Pelphrey. and other people. So
yeah, I ended up really liking this movie after all. It was just a lot of fun to watch. It was a very entertaining film. I was kind of captivated by the conversations. Granted, a lot of the conversations were political in nature, and that is always going to catch my interest. I liked a lot of the performance. I liked Gary Oldman actually in this performance. He was very good. Charles Dance, whoever was playing Louis B. Mayer, like it was really kind of. I can imagine a film like this playing in film school or in a film class. It's very based on the time, and you kind of see how Mankiewicz formed the ideas for what would be in Citizen Kane, right? Like basing off Charles Foster Kane off a real life person, William Randolph Hearst. You got to see how Hollywood was in bed with some of the big proprietors who were manipulating politicians behind the scenes. You get to see how they influence the outcome of an election in a very despicable manner. And it's just a really fun movie to look at, like it was, I think the filmmaking is best where in this department, it just looks amazing. Yes, it's in black and white, but it looks great in black and white. The sets are beautiful. It does, and even the sound design. It was made to sound like a film that would be of that time. I think. Yeah,
that was a nice touch.
yeah. I think it is a wonderfully made movie. I may watch this again every now and then. This is actually a real fun movie to watch. Again, this is me. I may think though, most people would find this boring, if not. Well, for various reasons, I feel, but maybe because a lot of the things that are being discussed, if you don't know what they're talking about, if you don't have some kind of foundation about where, what place in time this takes place in, what was going on around that time, you may just fall asleep watching this movie. And I can understand that. And I think that may be a fault of the screenplay in that department. And there are ways that it could have been revised, I think, to make it much more engaging. I do understand why most people just don't have... There's nothing in this movie, I guess, because of Mankiewicz, who isn't, I guess... He's not the most root-worthy person, I guess you could say. So there's a lack of passion from most people when it comes to this film. And I understand that. I'm not particularly passionate about it. But I did really enjoy this movie. And so it was a win for me. And I think I did benefit from having really low expectations out of it. So I liked it.
I enjoyed it as well. But I also understand a lot of the complaints that people had about it. Obviously shot beautifully, the sound, the music. I really enjoyed the music.
Yes, thank you. That was great. It was also Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and it was also a nominee.
Didn't he win? Oh, no.
They won, but they won for Soul, not for me.
Oh, that's right. Okay. But no, the music was also really great. A lot of the shots were really very, very well done.
Yeah.
It's David Fincher, obviously. But I will say, I think the biggest issue is the script.
Yeah.
And...
Although I will say, real quick, I didn't have an overall issue with its pacing. I know people have said that in the second half that it kind of gets a little out of control, that it kind of collapses.
Really?
I've heard people say that. And I actually thought it was reasonably well paced. I was expecting a much longer movie than it actually was. And at no point did I feel like okay, this is going on a little bit long, or it's lulling in places. I
think the second half is when it starts to come together. I think the first half meanders a little bit, or it's not that it meanders, but it's not entirely clear what this movie is about. I feel like it just starts.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of scenes of a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, but like, what is this? Like, what is this movie about? Where is this leading? Where is this going? And it isn't until you get to the second act where you get more into the crisis of consciousness of Mankiewicz and his decision in writing Citizen Kane and the consequences that will come with writing Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, now I'm getting an idea.
That's what this movie is about, and it takes a while for you to even get that.
Mm-hmm. And I feel if I could change anything, it would be the first half to just kind of make clearer. Because the first half really just sort of feels like, okay, there are scenes, there are people, stuff is happening, it's well acted,
but you have no sense of how it comes together.
Yeah, there really isn't a sense of direction.
And there's also, and I guess they do make it clear in terms of like there's like this effect where a typewriter is like saying present day or flashback. But there are a lot of like, there's jumping back and forth between the past and then also the present.
That doesn't help it either.
No, you think it would, but it didn't. I think they thought that if they just spelled it out in like some credits on the screen that it would make it flow better. I don't think that helped at all.
No. There was a few moments where I did get confused. I was like, okay, where am I?
Where are we? What? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you're not even sure what the story is going, like where's it trying to lead to, it's all the more like,
it's really testing your patience.
Yeah. But like I said, by the time you get to the second half and you're like, okay, I
get it now.
I get it. I know where it's going. And I agree. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
The political aspects, the character himself, all the connections to Citizen Kane, obviously. There's another film that me and you, I really love.
Yeah.
All of that worked for me. And then, of course, like we said, everything before, music, costume, sets, the way it's shot, all of that's already A+, right? Like all of the...
Yeah.
So once the writing tightened up, it came together, I think, in a really awesome way.
Yeah.
The only real issue for me is just that first half just felt a little bit all over the place. It was clunky. I think clunky is a good word. Yeah, but overall, no, I did really like it. That was really good. Everyone says Amanda Seyfried was really good in it, and she was.
She is, yeah.
I liked who was the one that played
Randolph Hearst?
Yeah.
Charles Dance
from
Game of Thrones, Tywin Lannister himself. Yeah.
Yes. He was really good.
He was great in anything. He was on The Crown too. He was
play the king?
No, he played the Prince Philip, who just passed away. Mm-hmm. He played his uncle.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought he would have played Prince Philip himself.
Technically, he would be a great, if the Crown ever did go into his final years, he'd be a great
I imagine that's where they're going, right?
They say season 6 is the end, but after that Meghan Markle thing, like, how can they not go all the way?
How can you not? Like,
I know,
that's kind of wait. Now, okay, we need a detour. The only reason I would ever watch The Crown is because I would want to get to the modern shit. Like, that's
it is getting modern too. I think they say the early 2010s.
No,
the early 2010s I think is where they're aiming for. But I don't believe it. I don't believe it yet. Like, this Meghan Markle, Harry thing is so big. Like, Netflix already said once season 5 is your end, but then like, never mind, we're gonna give you a season 6. So
if they don't get to Meghan Markle, I'm gonna be so disappointed. And the reason why I think it would be awesome is she could play herself.
Technically, yeah. Yeah.
She's an actress.
Yeah.
She certainly looks the part. That would be very funny. That would be the scandal of the century. Oh my God. Oh.
No, but Charles Dance is great. Some of my favorite scenes, there was a really great scene toward the end where Oldman's Mank is just pissed drunk and he arrives
and he's
at the party.
taking it out on him.
Oh, and he goes to hell. And it was so awkward. Two people just slowly getting up out of the table. And I it kind of was, it's really, I guess, a little intimidating how Hearst handled that. He didn't seem, obviously you knew he wasn't happy with what he was saying, but the way how he handled that was very interesting. He slowly got up.
He's like, go home, you're drunk.
Home. Yeah. Well, everybody else was just, they left in outrage or disgust or fear, almost even, depending on who they were.
Yeah, no, that was a great scene.
Yeah. But I also loved how, if I may, you get to really understand, I think, because at first, like, this Mankiewicz guy just seems like a normal guy who is kind of a renegade in his own way. Like, he clearly has his own points of view. And admittedly, that appeals to me because a lot, like, he has some really valid points to make about where the state of things are in the world. And everybody else is like basically this big, slobbering capitalist / propagandist, this idealism that is in many ways misguided. And Mank just kind of like relishes an opportunity to kind of like counterpoint whatever the fuck they're saying. And it's entertaining because like they keep him around. Even though he's being very confrontational to them in these settings. Of course, you come to realize that he's kept around because they see him as this court jester and there's this place for him there. But it is, in my view, just so entertaining to watch him just like rip the bark off some of these assholes for their own hypocrisy. And that is just so much fun. And so you think of him at first as, oh, he's just this guy and, he's that kind of guy. But then once it begins to pull the curtain back on what the film is, and you see how he becomes to get more emotionally engaged in the script because of what he himself has experienced with these people, and you kind of, at least with me, I loved it more that this script was a basic fuck you to every single one of those assholes. It made me appreciate him and kind of the movie that much more. That made me kind of love it all together. And him as a result. So I don't know if you... And it also featured the age-old, annoying, always rage-inducing conversation of socialism, communism, capitalism that never fucking ends. And so, of course, I'm always a sucker for that. So there is.
Just do the things that work.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my motto. I don't give a fuck what you call it. If it makes the world a better place, then do it. I figured that shit would work.
Yeah. Like a fiddle.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure how well it would, but it seems to have worked very well. No. It's good. Yeah, like when I think back to the film, those are the parts that really stick out to me, right? Like from like the election night. Oh yeah, him going crazy. That was a
beautiful set, by the way. The election night party.
Yeah, worthy of an Oscar.
Yeah, and it got one.
His argument with Orson Welles.
Yeah.
His conversations.
Who's barely in this movie. It's not really about Orson Welles.
Oh,
he's
he's
kind of like an afterthought in many aspects. But it's interesting because I remember watching the audio commentary by Roger Ebert on Citizen Kane. And when it got to the end, he said in that commentary that it was very rare for a director to credit his writer with him as, the credits begin. And that was a very big thing that Orson Welles did. And I always wondered why that was the case, and I guess I kind of have my answer now. And it makes me really appreciate Herman Mankiewicz's involvement in this project because, let's face it, as, the decades have come and gone, Orson Welles pretty much gets all the credit for that movie, Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Very talented guy, but everyone should get their due if they have contributed. No, I agree. I think that's great. it is interesting, the discussion as far as like, well, who contributed most to the script? Like, I think that's where the script probably arose from. And, you know, some people, Orson Welles wrote it all, or Mankiewicz wrote it all.
Well, the way the film makes it seem as if, like, well, the bulk of this thing basically came from Mank, but it also made it clear that Orson kind of had creative control at the end. Like, he took
it and then made his own
he had some hard
contributions.
Exactly. Yeah.
How true that is, probably not.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Really.
Yeah, and I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
This story isn't about. That's also, I think, what maybe threw people off guard. This movie isn't really about well, it is and it isn't, you know, writing Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
It's just sort of the backdrop for the real story of Mankiewicz and his crisis of consciousness and his sort of career as a writer and, like you say, as a renegade, and sort of this, he's at a crossroads in his job and with the people around him, rich motherfuckers, as you like to call them, the fork in the road caused by the election and everything surrounding that, you know. That's really what the story's about. And I like that story. I think that's an interesting story. And again, I agree, politics stuff works on me too. So I enjoyed that. No, overall, I think it's good. It's a good film.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I enjoy it that much more, I think, now than I would have if I maybe have seen it
when it cold.
Came out. Yeah. And I'm also happy too, because I think if let's say I did like it as much as I do now, at the time where the first wave of reviews was coming out, I probably would have been pissed off. So now I'm not. So there is
That's true. When everyone is shitting on it, you'd probably be all angry if you had seen it right when it came out.
Because that happens frequently. In the case of My Octopus Teacher, which I neglected to mention that it did win Best Documentary Feature.
That's right. It did win.
So, and it's interesting. I think Netflix won the most Oscars of the night. Of course, Best Picture still eludes them, even though they had like several nominees. And there is that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I encourage you all to watch this. If any of this interests you, I think you will find enjoyment value in the film. If a lot of this stuff sounds like pretentious, boring nonsense that you could care less about, maybe don't watch it. Maybe don't watch the movie.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go, Peter, let's get your thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That's right.
The Disney Plus series that just ended its 6-episode run, finale that aired recently. David and I, of course, have been talking about this on a week-to-week basis. And Alexis Moreno and Kyle Lira already have their review up on the Fantasy Fair podcast. So just for a quick recap, Alexis and Kyle really loved this show. It is my impression that they preferred this to WandaVision. David and I also really liked, to at moments loved the show, but we overall preferred the storytelling and quality of WandaVision. So and if you want to hear all of our thoughts, the episodes are on the feed for you to listen to in more detail, whether you just want a normal review with Fantasy Fair or a week-to-week breakdown with me and David. All of that said, Peter, what are your thoughts on this television show?
Too diverse and too political.
And that is our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. As a reminder, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's kidding too. Don't turn us off. He's kidding too.
As I've stated several times in our past episodes, I did not care about a Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I remember when they announced it, and it's just like, okay, great. So you're going to try and do basically Captain America and the Winter Soldier without Steve Rogers, without Captain America, and it's gonna be. It just didn't seem. It seemed like more of the same, right? And that was very uninteresting to me. And I was just like, don't care. Like I was the biggest person rolling my eyes when this was announced. And then the first episode dropped, and I remember I was like, that was a perfect episode. That was a great way to start the series. Fantastic action, great character stuff with Sam and Bucky, and then great threads to lead us to, you know, the whole story what the story will be. And I have now seen the entire film, all 6 hours of it.
Yes, the entire television show, all 6 episodes of it, the miniseries, or actually the drama series. So to be clear,
I have seen the Snyder cut, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It exceeded my expectations.
Low as they
very
were,
much.
It exceeded them.
They were low, and I make that clear. But they did very, very much exceed them. So by the end, I really enjoyed it, and I was really happy with it. And I know it's funny that you guys compare WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier against each other, but I think the real question is, where do you rank it amongst the rest of the MCU? That's something that I think is hard, and
I have a couple of issues with your question, because I'm somebody who is incapable of letting this go, these particular stipulations, for various reasons.
Okay.
When you say when it compares to the rest of the MCU, that is a very loaded question. It's a very loaded question because people have their own meanings to that, right? Like, when you can say what is quote unquote officially sanctioned Marvel Cinematic Universe, but then there are a whole bunch of other projects that are loosely connected, quote unquote, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
I'm not talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, look, that's a very fair question to ask, right? And I'm not just referring to that show. We talked about the Marvel television series as well. Okay. Alexis Moreno.
The Kevin Feige universe.
Okay, so the stipulation there is things that have been firsthand produced by Kevin Feige. Okay, that is the best way to ask that question.
And I agree, there are other parts of the MCU that I enjoy, right, as well as you. And I say fuck everyone that's part of the MCU, particularly like Daredevil and all that stuff. Yeah, you know, I love it, and I'm like, fuck you, it's part of the MCU. And according to leaks, it will be confirmed soon enough. But I also say most people say Feige produced specifically.
Right, yeah.
So that's what
I also say fuck canon. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
If you whatever your headcanon is, good for you, more power to you, right? Like, we're not one of those canon bitches. So things that have been firsthand, and that's the first thing that I have an issue with. The second thing that I have an issue with, these WandaVision and Falcon are shows, and the rest are movies. Peter Martinez is holding up his phone in a very obnoxious manner. He is showing me the letterbox page of the television show Falcon and the Winter Soldier, evidently because it has a profile on that site. And according to him, if it's on Letterboxd, it's a movie. And I say, fuck you. Fuck that noise. I don't accept that whatsoever. That is not my rationale. I think it is a sham.
I guess you can.
And Kyle Lira, apparently the hypocrite that he is, went back, reneged on what he said on his podcast in Fantasy Fair, and screw him for doing that.
He saw the light. And
why he's a hypocrite, because he says that you're constantly wrong about things on his podcast, but of course in this instance,
well, I guess that
out
really
of pure
proves
convenience, out of pure convenience, he just said that. He's a liar.
If we disagree on everything, but we agree on this, then it must be as clear as day that yes, they count as films. I mean, we can just go to Kevin Feige himself.
No.
And use his words.
No. I propose that you and I be allowed to present our cases to the Fantasy Fair court and see how this goes.
So you're unwilling to even compare them to the rest of the episode?
No, I will. I'm just saying these are my issues.
Mm-hmm.
When that
they are noted.
They better fucking well be noted. And my third issue.
Oh, there's a third. Okay.
My third issue is I don't know. I don't know. Like,
you could have led with that.
Yeah, but I couldn't let these things go. They needed to be said. These grievances needed to be aired. But I also don't know how they would be compared to the movies. I will say, as a general rule, I feel the quality of these two shows are vastly superior than over half of the movies. I'm just going to say that as a bare minimum.
Okay. I would probably agree with that. I really ended up enjoying The Falcon and the Winter Soldier in ways I never expected that I would. I thought the character stuff was really, really well done. I honestly expected this to be just sort of like a buddy cop adventure where, you know, there's action every episode, but it's just basically them just sort of tracking down Zemo, because Zemo was kind of presented as going to be the bad guy, and, you know, fight, and then, you know, maybe he has his group, the Flag Smashers, and they fight them, and I thought it was going to be very standard in that way.
Marvel movie, the movie.
Yeah, Marvel movie, right? Just stretched out over 6 hours. In my mind, that's what it was going to be, but it wasn't that. It wasn't revolutionary, but it also wasn't Marvel movie, the 6 hour movie. it was a lot more, and I think that's really good. The character stuff was really great. With the Winter Soldier, again, they gave him some interesting stuff. The way he dealt with his PTSD and dealing with sort of repenting for the mistakes he made when it wasn't even his fault, but, you know, he still has this feeling of guilt. You know, the line, I don't know what it was, Civil War, where Cap's like, you didn't do that, or you didn't choose to do it, you didn't have a choice. And he's like, yeah, but I did it. Like,
I still did it. Yeah,
I still did it. That sort of pain that he carries with him. And what's his name? Sam, and his personal sort of family drama combined with feelings of just sort of the weight of having the mantle of Captain America thrust upon him, and ultimately making the decision not to take the mantle.
To abdicate, basically.
Yeah, and sort of the ramifications because of that. And then you bring in really interesting characters like John Walker. Yeah. Interesting villains like the Flag Smashers. Great action throughout. They had really, really good action.
It
was well choreographed, well shot, well fought. Really good stuff. And then apparently, I don't know what the fuck it is with these Disney Plus shows, where all of a sudden they're doing their best costume work. I don't get it. But he got a kick-ass Captain America costume by the end of it. The only issue I have is I thought it would be a little bit more sleeker. It's a little bit more like the first Captain America costume, like the World War II one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the only reason I thought it'd be sleeker is because he's in the air, right? So you gotta...
I guess since you pointed that out, maybe they were going for a retro Cap look.
I think a little bit, right? But what's so awesome is that it's clearly Captain America, but it's not Steve's costume.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's not just him putting on Steve's costume. It's his Captain America.
You know what's really cool, though? Mm-hmm. They announced that he's in... that Sam Wilson Captain America in that costume is going to be a meet and greet character when Avengers Campus opens next month at Disney.
That's so cool. I think
great.
that's so awesome. You know, it's another thing, and I have to give credit because I often criticize about this. They tackled the issues of race and the idea of a black Captain America head on.
Can you believe that?
Right?
Can you believe that?
I never would have assumed that they would have done that, but they did.
Yeah.
They really did. They tackled it head on. There's so many scenes in here where I'm like, wow, I never thought they would have the balls to like take it this far, and they did.
Yeah.
Especially all the stuff with Eli Bradley was
Isaiah.
fantastic.
Isaiah.
Sorry, Eli's his
son.
His grandson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who we will definitely see more of in the future.
Yeah.
But Isaiah Bradley, and hopefully Isaiah Bradley as well.
Yeah. Carl Lumley's amazing.
He's so good.
I don't care anymore if we had any doubts. If somebody out there can fund Mike Flanagan's Halloran film starring Carl Lumley, please do it.
He's amazing. And you know what? You don't see it in the Dr. Sleep, but man, you see it here. Mm-hmm. He's got that like physique. You know, he's got that like old man buff physique where you know in his prime he was a monster. Like he kind of heavy set.
Everything about his look and in terms of his acting ability, just it feels like he's a force of nature.
Mm-hmm. Like he is an actor's actor. He was so good. Mm-hmm. I'm really hoping, because they had announced a Captain America 4 starred Sam Wilson as the main Cap, which got me really excited. I'm like, that's so fucking cool. I'm really hoping that his main like supporting cast is Isaiah Bradley and Eli Bradley, and like that relationship continues further on.
I hope so too. Mm-hmm. I really hope so too. And I have to assume that the film is going to pick back up also Sebastian Stan.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then also I forget his name, something Ramirez, but he played he was kind of a minor side character, but he clearly is like the Falcon's sidekick in the comics.
Well, he's going to be the new Falcon.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
In the comics, he became the new Falcon when what's his name became Captain
America.
Mm-hmm. And he has a slightly different Falcon costume.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping they stick to. It's a little hard to translate, but I mean, come on now.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that particular side character, is he LGBTQ in the comics?
Oh, I have no idea.
Because apparently I think I saw some of that going around, and people were saying Marvel better keep him that way.
If he is, they better, right?
Yeah.
I haven't read much with him. I haven't read I want to, but the Cap where Sam Wilson, because he actually became Captain America pretty recently with like that costume.
Really?
Yes, that happened pretty recently in the comics. There's actually, I think it happened 2014, because there's a tweet from Sam Wilson, the actor,
Anthony
Mackie, where he said like, where he had tweeted something like, "This is just in the comics, but this is so fucking cool." You know.
Wow. And now here he is wearing it. Yeah.
He's wearing the costume, and he's Captain America, right? And this is, Marvel is addressing one of the biggest issues I've always had. Well, I think they're forced to address them now. But how I talked about, they have this issue with perfectly fine characters.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, they're there, you know, little about them, but they're likable enough, like perfectly
basically
likable.
Sam before this show.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that was the issue with something like Vision and Wanda and Sam. Like Sam, he was just always kind of there, right?
Yeah,
he's perfectly likable, but like as far as a character goes, you don't really know or understand much about him. I know and I understand so much about him now.
Yeah, I know who this guy is now.
I know, and I like him, and he's so awesome. Mm-hmm. And I understand his struggles, and I understand his like all the stuff with his family. I thought it was so cool.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, I want them back if there's a Captain America 4.
Right. Are they gonna make his sister and Bucky a thing?
I say yes. I would love that. Would
be hilarious to me.
I think that would be great. He's the
and you also got to see Bucky and Sam become friends. Yeah,
that's so cool. Like by the end, when you know they're having that cookout, and you know the whole town's coming and taking pictures with the new Captain America, and then you know Uncle Bucky strolls in,
Uncle Bucky.
From fucking Full House, like what's his name? Just with
Uncle
the shades,
Jesse.
like Uncle Jesse and the cake. You know, cool as shit.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, and it's so great, and the character stuff. The character stuff is what makes it work.
Yeah.
Right? And it's great. I loved it. I loved what they did with Zemo.
Right?
It's not what I expected at all. Yeah. I thought Zemo was, and they made it look that way. Oh, Zemo's going to be the main bad guy somehow.
Me too. I thought that too.
And he's the coolest one among them. Because
of this, like, he actually makes for a much more compelling lead for a potential Thunderbolts show.
Yes. I would
Daniel
like to...
Bruhl. Mm-hmm. Good for him. I'm glad for him. He's great in this role.
He has so many funny lines when he's talking about the music, and he's like, comprehensive. It's a masterpiece.
Complete. Yeah. It captures the African American experience, and then just cut to Sam's reaction. Like, he's out of line, but he's right.
Like, and like the different conversations he had with both Bucky and Sam.
Yeah.
And the way he sort of pushes them in his direction and manipulates a little bit here and there. Mm-hmm. And he's a very interesting villain, because he's very clearly, you know, he's willing to murder people, right? Like that's, but it's under this belief of anti-supremacy.
He's got a code.
He's got a code. He's got ethics about him. And yeah, when he's not murdering, he's a cool guy. He's dancing it up in the club, you know.
And in this situation, when he is murdering, they're bad guys for the most part.
Yes, right. Well, that's another thing with this show. I think the show tried hard to be in the gray a bit, right? Like,
yeah, I think it succeeded.
Fully good or fully bad.
Yeah.
They did some great stuff. And again, they pushed things to places I didn't think they would. Like with John Walker.
Right.
The I don't know, the fucking beheading her around the world or whatever the fuck. When he killed
Nico,
never expected
the flag smasher guy.
Yeah, I never expected that Marvel would allow, especially with like blood smeared all over, you know, the Cap shield and in front of everyone. And then it's so great the next episode where like Sam's like crying and wiping the blood off the shield. Like there's a lot of great shots and symbolism tied in throughout it. One of the issues I would say is with John Walker though, like that redemption did not work.
No, it didn't. And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned it. David and I were being a little, like, David did bring this up as well, and I had an issue with it too. And I was trying to excuse it by saying perhaps it was awkward direction in terms of how it was executed, because that's just not a redemption arc. That's like the beginning of a redemptive arc, but not an actual arc. But then I saw, and I will be discussing this at greater detail with David in next week's episode. We're going to have a discussion on the Winter Soldier controversy, the creator of the comic, as well as some of the interviews that, in particular, Malcolm Spellman, who is the director, the writer of this, writer/showrunner of this. And then also the director, Carly.
Director's a woman, right?
Yeah, Carly. Give me 1 second while I get her name. But she said something.
She has like a long last name, I think.
She does. But she was quoted recently. I think she gave an interview with IO9, and some people were putting her on blast for what she said. Again, we're going to get this in greater detail. But she basically says her name is Kari Skoglund.
Oh, yeah.
And she says the goal was for everyone to get to like John Walker by the end of the season. And she says, I think everyone does. No, that's a big no. I feel like and if that's what your intention was, no. I think, that's just not how a redemptive arc works. And you're right, because at the end of it came off like we're supposed to like this guy now. We really don't. Like, he had a moment of some kind of redemption, but not all is forgiven, nor it should be. But
yeah. Like these are great characters, so I'm fine with some level of just letting the audience know he's not like this purely evil individual, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah. Because if he was purely evil, it would be another Hayward. And I wanted to say, I said this to David in reviewing the finale. Like, I'm just, I would rather have a complicated adversary antagonist like this than a hilariously cartoonish villain like fucking Hayward from WandaVision.
Yeah. Oh God, Hayward sucked. No. I much rather, because John Walker's interesting, right? He's an interesting character, where Hayward is a joke. Like, that was terrible. No, but it's so weird with John Walker, because that feels like the sort of shitty corporatism jumping in, where it's like, we need to use his character for 50 movies in the future, right. So let's quickly try and change everything interesting we did with him, so we can continue to use his character.
I think
you didn't need to just have him continue being a morally gray character. Like, that's fine, right?
Right. Which is the costume and the U.S. agent label.
Yeah, he's supposed to be morally gray anyways, right? So that's I don't know why they're like, no, you have to like him, because like with Carly and the Flag Smashers, they got worse and worse, obviously, but I think they did a good job of maintaining them as a morally gray.
Yes.
A lot of the other characters, I think they did a good job of going like, they're not completely in the wrong, or they're not completely in the right. This is kind of backtracking a little bit, but like, what's his name? The Winter Soldier apologizing. Bucky apologizing to Sam, going like, I was pissed at you, but me and Steve, and this is cool because it turns out, I guess they talked about it, when we talked about you getting the shield, neither of us knew what it was to be a black man in America, and we're
didn't
sorry,
come to our
right?
minds.
It didn't even cross our minds.
No.
To them, it's like, what, you can vote? Damn, like, you did it. It's over. I'm sure.
I mean, they were born in the 40s. Hey, I mean, no, they weren't born. They were born in the 1910s, I think.
Yeah, probably like early 1900s.
Yeah.
Motherfucker. So yeah, and then of course Zemo, right? Like, he's morally gray, and it ends the show with him morally gray area, where he's an interesting character, where I want to see what he does next. And I think they really fucked up. His
philosophy
with
was
John
actually
Walker.
well, not his philosophy, but his what he said.
He wasn't completely wrong.
No, he was kind of right about what happened to Carly.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But also, Carly wasn't wrong in her grievances.
Of course not. And I'm glad the show made it very clear that she was in the right.
Another thing.
She was in the right. It was her method that was wrong, 100%. But it was what she was fighting for is a righteous cause.
Like, I love, and I know there's a lot of, actually not even that. I thought there would be more, but there is some people split on the speech that he gave at the end. I adore that speech.
Thank you. People. There were. I mentioned on the show with David when talking about the finale that there were people who thought it was way too on the nose. But then I think
that's Captain America.
Right. But then I have your voice in my head when you say, you know what? Trump was elected president a couple of years ago. I think you need to spell things out for people. Yes. You need to spell it out.
One, yes. And two, if you read any Captain America comic, that's like straight out of the comics. He'll constantly just stop and give a big ass speech to like the reader and shit. Like I've shared panels with you where Captain America just like, I don't know, proselytizes to the reader about his beliefs, and here it felt like it came out of a Captain America comic.
Steve gave a speech at the climax, or getting toward the climax of Winter Soldier. Like, they give speeches. Like, what's the big deal?
Mm-hmm. And he was speaking to the world when he was speaking, because it was to a camera. He was speaking one-on-one to that, but. Again, it went so far as to the way he said, like, you gotta stop calling them terrorists, right? Yeah. And he said so many things where it's like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm surprised they're letting you say this shit. Like, this to me is so true to Captain America. But not only is it so true to Captain America, it's so true to Sam Wilson's Captain America. And I don't know if anyone's asked. Hold on.
Peter's cat is getting real anxious in his room. So if you're hearing some movement in the background, that's kind of what's going on. And so he's trying to get her attention. I think he just threw something at her. Oh dear.
It was a pillow.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Once we hit the 3-hour mark, she starts running in circles.
We're almost done, people. We're almost done.
But no, I don't know if anyone's even asked you this, because you, I believe, are married to Steve Rogers in real life. I feel you've made that happen. You've married a fictional character.
Right.
So how do you feel about there being a new Captain America and it not being Steve Rogers?
I with me, and I think with you in this respect as well, we were very happy with the ending that Steve Rogers received, because he did receive one of those happy endings, and it did get me emotionally also with him passing down the baton to Sam in the film. And one of the things that made me sad about Endgame was the fact that we're not going to have an MCU. We're going to be in a world without Captain America. And while happy as I was for Steve, something about that just felt wrong, right? Like there should be a Captain America. And we have one now. We have one back, and we have a great one now. And actually, with all due respect to Steve, we have one now that is made for the times that we're living in. You can,
that's a direct quote.
You have to speak to where we are, and one that can also be an inspiration for many people, not just for for those righteous values, right? But also the fact that, his identity as a black man. And you have to think of how, how in there were scenes where he was using the shield and what it meant to his nephews. Like, ultimately, that's who all of this is for. That's who superheroes are for. And for, young black children across the country, for them to have a black Captain America to look up to in this day and age, I think that's such a beautiful thing. And so for me, as a fan of this character, I think Sam Wilson in this 6-part series perfectly, I think it made the case for why he should be Captain America. And I'm just very happy that it's him. And even more so that the show was received so well that Marvel has faith in Spellman, who wrote all of these episodes. We're going to get more movies, but with Sam Wilson now. And I think that's an extraordinary achievement in terms of that we have a black Captain America who is now going to be a theatrical play. We have another black lead now, besides Black Panther in these Marvel films. And so for various number of reasons, Steve has my heart. He always will have, but now so does Sam. And I think this is a home run. I really, as far as like him being the next Cap, I think they kind of went no wrong in this show, You know what's so cool is I don't think we've ever seen this in the films, right? Because we've had multiple Spider-Men, but they've all been rebooted versions of Peter Parker. Yeah.
Right? Like whenever we have seen multiple characters, like Hulks, whatever, they were all technically Bruce Banner, right?
Right.
All that changed was the actor. Here, it's literally an entirely different character.
Yeah.
Playing holding that same moniker of Captain. And I think that's the first time we've actually seen that.
And when you think about it, I think it works a lot better, especially since you and I were very resistant to the idea of like handing down the batons, but the same like character name. Like we were not very open to like, oh, the next Iron Man, the next Black Widow, the next Captain America.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true.
We were very against that idea. And this kind of like
it convinced me. I want to see Captain America 4. And I think what helps is it is not Sam Wilson trying to be Steve Rogers, right?
Yes.
It is Sam Wilson's Captain America. He's still got the wings. He's got his own way of fighting. He doesn't have the super soldier serum. He's got his own way of doing things. So it's like it's the same moniker, but it's its own character, right? Yeah. And that's always what's most important. And I wanted to get your opinion on this because I noticed it and I really liked it. Is in that final episode, it hit those moments where it's like, this is why I love superheroes, right?
Yeah.
So it had those, you know, we always do this, throwing it back to Sam Raimi, those cheesy moments where he saves people and, you know, he has the cool pose and people are cheering, you know, like, yeah, he saved them. With the guy where he's like, that's the Black Falcon. No, that's Captain America. Like those moments, right? Where he comes down angelically to the police. And then of course he gives that speech where everyone is watching and they're moved. And like, some people might go like, that's a little cheesy. For me, I'm like, yes, they get it. They understand what this is, right? And whenever those moments happen, I'm like, oh my God, I love it. Like that's why I look at superhero movies.
I immediately recognize those moments as very much akin to those scenes, especially from the first Raimi Spider-Man movie. David also, when we in our discussion, brought it up, that sequence where if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. You know, the New Yorkers throwing trash at the Green Goblin. It's very much, it felt like that. And I was taken aback, very pleasantly surprised that they actually did that. Because the MCU rarely goes for moments like those. They seem adverse often. Oftentimes they seem adverse to do something like that. But they did it. And even though I did see people who laughed and like thought it was like over the nose and cheesy, because I've established several times people just seem to be adverse to cheese. I'm not. I happen to enjoy it. And I think it's very
no
essential.
Lactose intolerance here.
No, none whatsoever. I thought it was an essential part as to why that finale landed very well. No, I agree. I love those moments. It made me... I'm just shocked how much we're enjoying these shows. We had such low expectations. We were so sure they were going to be a waste of time, and yet they're great. This is the premium content on Disney Plus. This is what we're here for. Not some other thing. Curiously, though, as we wrap things up, did you have any issues overall with the series besides the Walker thing that we talked about?
Sure.
Did you think,
it's not a perfect...
One particular question. Do you think this could have benefited from going to 9 episodes instead of 6?
No.
Okay.
I would not want 9 episodes.
Okay. So what are your issues overall then, if you have any?
I think in the middle, the show kind of slowed down a bit, I would say. Just a little bit. The sets and stuff felt very... I noticed the budget.
See, I talked about this with David too a few weeks back. We didn't until it was pointed out. Like, okay, sure, but like, I guess you really do notice the budget on a lot of different things. And I don't care most of the times. I'm an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan. I don't care about budget, clearly. But also, when you mention Schitt's Creek is very cheap, and I'm like, you know what, you're right, but I never took the time to think about that, you know? Like, I don't care if you're telling a good story, you're telling
I'm
a good
man
story.
of eloquent taste, all right?
Sure.
You have peasant eyes.
Okay. Loud and clear. No, but your favorite Miss Randolph pointed that out a few weeks back, that a lot of the locations were in like warehouses or garages, and like, sure, yeah, I didn't care, but it is a good way to save money. You are right. I mean, I think to me the more egregious thing on display that was very budget, and I laughed immediately, was Budget Wakanda. It was like a shot of the city as the camera pulls away and we're going off to the woods.
And then fucking woods, the LA woods.
Yeah. And I said to David, watch, this is something Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would do.
California.
This is something Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would do, and they would be like criticized for it. No one said anything about this show doing that. And to be fair, this is the one that's supposed to put up the money to go to those locations. And even they didn't go there. And I have to say, I understand that. It didn't bother me, ultimately. I just laughed because I knew it was a budget move.
Story-wise, it worked, though, right? Like,
yes, they made it work, yeah.
Because you're trying to trigger him, so you want him away from the city.
Yes.
Away from danger, in the middle of nowhere, so that they could, test him out, I guess.
Right.
So I get that. Didn't bother me at all. It is that thing of like, hi Wakanda, bye Wakanda.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Yeah.
That is funny. It's not the budget itself. It's more the sets, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm running down these same alleyways. It feels like it is a lot of those types of locations, but when it comes to spending money, it looks good. Like the action scenes look good. I guess the final episode isn't as like big, I guess you would say. It's not like a huge action stuff.
No.
But I don't think it has to be.
No.
It's still good, and I still enjoy it. Again, I really enjoy how they show like he is a different Captain America. They show him taking out the helicopters,
right,
and the way he uses wings in combination with the shield.
Right.
In such a short amount of time, there's so many beautiful shots. Him in the air throwing it. He has that one move where he throws it out of the building and then runs and then flies, grabs it midair. When he's carrying Carly's body and he like descends like an angel. It's so many really nice looking things. He still has Red Wing, and the way that they incorporate some technology, right? So like when he's lifting the what's it called? The bus or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's using like little mini Red Wings to like help him push it back up. Like that stuff's really cool, right? And all of it looks good. All the action looks good. Oh, and another part when Carly like punches him and then like the wings like shoot to the ground to like stabilize him.
Yeah.
That stuff was cool. Yeah, on the whole, it's just like you don't notice it in WandaVision because the story allows that, right? Like,
sure,
you have two locations, which is the town, and the camp outside.
Yeah.
But that makes sense for the story, right? So I'm not thinking about like, why aren't we going everywhere? But because this is a show where it's like this international, like we're zipping all over the world. When stuff looks similar, you notice it more easily. I guess that's the thing.
See, I guess that's true, but I never really.
It's not that big a deal.
I know that, but like when you're saying it, yes, I can see it now in my head. But when I'm watching the show, that stuff just doesn't come to mind unless it's pointed out for me. That's just how I am. And again, with me, I know that I'm watching a TV show. Yes, they have the money for some cool action sequences. They have some great, really beautiful VFX money. But I also have to, I'm watching a TV show. I know what I'm getting.
A film, yeah.
No, if they were a film, then you can criticize it for being in hallways, because it's the TV show, you can let it go.
A lot of films do that as well. Did you know that, how at the end credits, how it says like Captain America? And by the way, that was such an awesome moment where it ends and it says Captain America.
I loved it.
And the Winter Soldier.
The White Wolf thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish they would have done it. Because it's about both of their
David does
journeys.
not like the name White Wolf. He hates the White Wolf.
It's about him
becoming a new moniker. I get you. Yeah.
I think
I read that.
It's
and
cool.
I'm gonna bring that up with him next week when we talk about it. But the gist of it is that they thought that it would take away too much from Sam, because the impact of the Captain America. That's
but it's both of theirs.
It is, yeah. Captain America and the White Wolf. Yeah.
I think that would have been cool.
Do you think because they announced a movie, that means we're not going to get a season 2 of this? Or can both coexist? Because they set up a lot of stuff. Granted, that could be covered in different shows like Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers.
Someone said something, and I was like, this is actually a pretty cool idea. You have the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that Mexican dude become the new Falcon.
Right.
And then the show is him and Bucky. And it's still the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But
didn't they rename it Captain America and the Winter Soldier at the end of that?
It was just at the end. If you still look online, it's the official
Falcon.
Title of the show is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
But you can do that. I think that would be...
Yeah.
That's a way to do it. That'd be cool.
This is the show for a season 2 renewal. That's prime for a season 2 renewal. More than the other ones.
All the other ones, the only one may be like Miss Marvel, unless they too want to just give her a film.
Right.
This is the one where I'm like, yeah, I can see a season 2.
Yeah.
Also, I saw some people saying this, and yeah, I guess I would agree that so far all the Marvel shows, the last episode has felt kind of rushed.
Yes, I pointed that out. David and I were very soft on this as an episode. I think it was a solid finale, but there are... We compared it at times to how WandaVision felt in the finale. Like, it was good.
WandaVision definitely felt rushed, right?
But it was rushed, yeah.
Here, it also felt rushed, but not as bad. I think the biggest issue is him and the old guy.
The
Winter Soldier.
No, wait.
The Winter Soldier and the Confession.
I got you, Yuri. That
Yuri.
was my biggest issue with this episode. I wanted to see that scene.
Yeah.
I thought we were robbed by that. That made me upset.
I think you needed to see it, and even if it was hard and uncomfortable and even heartbreaking, because he didn't take that well. He probably told him to get fucked and never see him, never come back again. But I think it's important. That emotional payoff of seeing that happen, I think was necessary. And I do think the show, I think it's bullshit that they kind of glossed over that.
Yeah.
Especially when there's so many other aspects of the show where they address things head on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to gloss over it, yeah. And then also, this is my thing. You don't have to be 40 some minutes. You can go a little bit longer.
Yeah, every episode,
what's stopping you?
Every episode, the average runtime was 42 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, but if it's longer, who cares?
No, it can be longer. I'm pointing that out because people were like, oh, it's an hour each. No, it's 42 minutes.
Yeah. But I guess my thing is, if there's no rule,
show.
Right?
There's no rule. No, they can be longer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know why they just don't.
I know.
Make it a little bit. Make it 10 minutes longer. Actually, make it a whole hour. Right?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Just do it. I don't know. Yeah, but overall, solid.
Yeah.
Very solid. It exceeded my low expectations, but it exceeded them pretty hard. I really enjoyed it. Not perfect, definitely has its issues, has its lulls, and there are things you could tighten here and there, fix some character stuff, especially like at the end with John Walker, fixing the issues with Bucky's the stuff he's going through. Yeah, there are things you can definitely fix, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I really did. And I'm excited about the future of these characters now. When before I just didn't give a shit. And now I'm like, I want to see Bucky. I want to see my new Cap. I want to see my Bucky get with my new Cap's sister. You know, I want to see everything. And Marvel understands that their characters are what makes it work, right? Because the fact that it ends with them just being people, right? You know, just sort of being a family, you know, neighborhood barbecue type shit. And then just like, yeah, like we're bros now. Because that's the stuff that works. Works so unbelievably well. Yeah.
Now for the $1 million question that is on everyone's minds. Would you prefer this to WandaVision?
I don't know. I honestly really don't know. I have
to abstain.
I do because
wow.
I would have to rewatch both. I have not rewatched WandaVision since I saw it week to week, and I have not rewatched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, having watched it week to week. They are very different.
Yes.
And they are trying to achieve different things.
They each have their own strengths and weaknesses.
I will say, I'm not saying that I like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier better, but WandaVision does have more weaknesses.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree 100%, and yet I do prefer it. It stole my heart.
Yeah.
Wanda and Vision, their romance, the emotion between them, got me in a way nothing here really did. That isn't to say Falcon didn't, appeal to my emotion. There's some passion for it, sure. But as far as the love, romance with Wanda and Vision, that to me is the cream of the crop.
No. Like, they did so many interesting, fun, cool stuff. And I agree, like, the relationship stuff works so well. Yeah. In WandaVision that I can definitely see myself saying, oh, yeah, like, there's more low stuff with WandaVision, but overall, I like it more. I'm not saying that, but I could possibly see myself saying it. Because right now, I don't know. I really would have to rewatch them. All I do know, like I said, is like everything with Sword and that stuff, I fucking just throw it in the garbage. I don't care about. Yeah. Whereas I never have that. And there's a lot of different plot lines running through in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because you have everything going on with Bucky, Sam, Isaiah Bradley, Flag Smashers,
Zemo, Carly Morgenthau, Sharon Carter.
There's a lot, right? Yeah. There's a lot of those threads, and not one of them did I feel like, fuck this, throw it out.
I agree 1,000%. Yeah, that's kind of a dilemma there. Yeah. And I also feel like all of those characters, all of the main, like all of the antagonists, the protagonists, in another way that I think that this is superior to WandaVision, they all tied in thematically. Yes. That was the big thing I was harping on with WandaVision. Like a lot of some characters just didn't tie in. Like some, like, what's her name? Monica Rambeau did not tie in the way I wanted it to. Neither did Agatha Harkness. But in this show, all of them had to do with the theme of the show.
See, that's the thing. Zemo and John Walker and a lot of these characters could have felt like, okay, you're just throwing them in there so we can see their origin or so we can just see where they end up next. But no, like they integrate into the main story and the main themes really well. Whereas like everything with Sword and Rambo, man, like they really do nothing with. She's there just to get powers. Yeah. And that fucking annoys me. Yeah. But then the good stuff's there so fucking good. Like genuinely like fantastic.
And I will say, I think as far as me, I feel like the episodes, the sitcom episodes, the sitcom heavy episodes are more rewatchable.
It makes me wish that they just released a just fuck it all pretense or anything. Just make a straight up sitcom.
That's what I said the first week. I was like, damn it, I hate that the show can't just be this.
Yeah.
I would have loved like a whole 22 episode season of this, you know?
No, but all that stuff I think works well.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to Loki now.
Yeah.
Because before the trailers for Loki, I'm like, this does look interesting, but I currently don't care about any of this. Now I care, and now it's like, like they are doing good stuff. So if this looks interesting, who knows? Yeah.
Before we go, I do want to also shout out Alexis Moreno. I want to thank her so much. She gave me an early birthday present this week when she did a review with Kyle, and she paid tribute to the Marvel Entertainment shows of the past, because she is basically saying like, look, in her view, she feels like the Marvel on TV has been delivering some great content for years now, and she went through the ones that she felt that she liked and then also were popular. So. Because we don't want to forget that those actually happened, obviously.
Well, it's not like relevant here because these are films, so I don't know why she was bringing them.
And on that irrelevant note, I am going to bring this episode to a close. Thank you, Mr. Martinez, for this 3+ hour show. No biggie. Just,
do we ever
as much as we can.
Not hit 3 hours?
Well, it is what it is. But overall, I enjoyed this discussion. It flew by for the most part, and I am hopeful that all of you listening at home enjoy this as well. Keep an eye out, stay under the spotlight, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.